huge excitement as the Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign, playing their opening match against Iran later today.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 21st of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
England and Wales launched their World Cup campaigns today with the Three Lions facing off against Iran at 1 p.m. It comes amid continued controversy, with England captain Harry Kane potentially facing an instant yellow card if he wears his rainbow armband during the match.
And Tory MPs have reacted with anger to claims that Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are considering a Swiss-style arrangement with the European Union. In an attempt to quell rebels, Number 10 has insisted that the option is off the table.
Migrant workers should be used to fix the UK's labour shortages, the CBI will warn the government today. We'll be speaking to the Minister for Immigration, Robert Jenrick, at 6:45.
And get in touch all the usual ways via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So the day is finally here. The Three Lions are kicking off their World Cup campaign, facing Iran in that opening match at 1 p.m.
And it comes amid controversy around England captain Harry Kane, who could face an instant yellow card for wearing the One Love armband in support of LGBTQ+ rights.
Well, Wales also launched their World Cup campaign this evening, facing off against the United States.
And yesterday's opener ended up with Qatar losing 2-0 to Ecuador, making them the first World Cup host to lose their opening match in the tournament's 92-year history.
That is the historic title you don't want, isn't it? Well, look, we can go to Qatar now. Our reporter Paul Hawkins joins us this morning. Good to see you, Paul. Look, peak excitement here in the UK, but as usual, much of the football almost being overshadowed by the controversies, the politics. Do we think that Harry Kane, with the support of the Football Association, is going to go out and wear that rainbow One Love band?
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely going to wear it. They're going to take the knee, they're going to wear the armbands, they're going to make their voices heard, and if they have to, they'll take a yellow card for it. So we do expect to see them wearing their One Love armbands, as the Welsh team will be. And let's be honest, today is a huge day for Welsh football. England on the qualify for most tournaments. They've done really well in the last two major tournaments, reaching obviously the final of the European Championships and also the semi-final of the last World Cup. But for Wales, they haven't been to a World Cup since 1958. So this is a huge occasion for 5 million Welsh people and the 3,000 or so Welsh supporters that have made the journey to Qatar, in addition to the Welsh expats that live here already. Remember, 80% of the people that live in Qatar are expats. And last night we caught up with one Welsh family on the waterfront, the Corniche. It was dark, and we just had the countdown, in fact, to the start of the first World Cup match with Qatar and Ecuador. And this is what the Welsh family has to tell us about how they're feeling about today's game.
So excited, and I can't believe it because Leo was actually born here and he's actually going to be here for the World Cup with Wales playing, so we're all so excited.
Yeah, Leo, he's just examining the Welsh dragon.
The dragon.
He loves
dragon.
The dragon. You like the dragon?
Dragon.
Yeah. We mentioned that you live in Doha as well, in Qatar. A lot's been written about Qatar in the press. Has that been fair?
I don't think so. I think really, it's got a lot of bad press, but really it's a very relaxed place. There's a lot going on. In terms of what we see here, I think it's overblown. I think, say for example, the World Cup was in Russia. We didn't seem to bring up so many of the issues there, but as it's come here, it's the Middle East, I think it's a little bit overblown.
So that's Todd, Jessica and Leo from Wrexham giving us their thoughts ahead of the game, which kicks off today. We're already seeing England fans. I can see a couple of Welsh fans over there. And we've seen lots of USA fans milling around as well. So the atmosphere is going to build as the day progresses. But before that, it is England taking on Iran. It's going to be fascinating to see how the Iranian players behave, given what has been happening in their country, given that domestic Iranian football has been held behind closed doors. And in fact, when the Iranian players score a goal in their domestic league, they don't celebrate at the moment. They point to the sky or they cut their hair in solidarity with the women because of the protests that have been happening in their country. And indeed, they don't even sing the national anthem. So how they behave during the match is going to be fascinating to watch, as well as the football itself. This is what one English family told us. They've travelled over to Qatar specially for the game this afternoon.
It's a bit hot, and I was surprised in the morning when we got out.
Yeah. And are you going to go and watch any football? Have you got tickets?
Yeah, we're going to watch England-Iran tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Are you excited? Yeah. Are you a football fan?
Yes.
Yeah. Dad, how excited are you?
Oh, very excited. Yeah. It only comes around every 4 years, doesn't it? So I know there's been obviously lots of controversy concerning this one, but so far we've got nothing for praise for the people that we've come across. It seems to be really well organised. Everyone's, like my daughter says, really friendly. So yeah, really excited for tomorrow.
So we're staying on one of the cruise ships, and yeah, I mean it was great last night. Really good. Yeah, it's good value, isn't it? Apart from the food, I suppose.
Food a bit expensive.
Yeah, food's a bit expensive. But yeah, the accommodation is great. I mean, we're the first people on the ship, so it's immaculate completely.
So really, England's biggest enemy, frankly, when they take on Iran is complacency. Of course, they're the overwhelming favourites to win it, but if Iran were to pull off the unimaginable, it would be an incredible sight. And then in terms of Wales against the USA, it's going to be a tough game for Wales against the USA. They're high energy, they're organised. They don't tend to resort to the long ball as they used to. They tend to play through the midfield. But Wales are the overwhelming favourites, especially given that they've got Gareth Bale. So it's going to be two fascinating matchups that we see later on. If the evening kick-off is at 10 o'clock, it will still be 25 degrees, give or take here, still very warm. In the afternoon, it could touch 30, and that is going to affect the pace at which England play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Paul, I was wondering about the armband. There's been a bit of a backlash back here because, of course, if Harry gets booked and he gets booked again during the game, he'll miss the next match. Or if he wears the armband for the USA game as well, he'll miss the Wales match. Is it worth it?
Well, I mean, the England players would say, yeah, it is, because they have to kind of draw a line in the sand and they have to be consistent with their messaging. They've talked about inclusivity. They've said that they are here to represent the rights of the LGBT Q+ community as well. So for them to then row back on that would open them up to accusations of hypocrisy. Look, you've said that you're an inclusive side, that you're an inclusive country, and then you decide to row back on the armband. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they wear it or not, because either way there will be consequences. Either they'll get a yellow card or they'll be open to accusations of hypocrisy. So it'll be fascinating to see whether they wear the armband later, and indeed whether the Welsh team do as well.
Paul, I just want to ask you about the opening match last night and indeed the opening ceremony. A bit of a storm kicked up here. Lots of people very disappointed they weren't able to watch the opening ceremony. But what was interesting was during that match when Qatar, the home nation, broke that record, becoming the first host nation to lose the first game in history, a lot of people started to leave before the end of the match. Empty stadium from about 70 minutes on. Quite a shocking image to be projecting. What did you make of all of that?
Personally, I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, if I'm honest, because pretty much most home fans will start to leave their own stadium, even earlier than 70 minutes, frankly. In fact, you see it all the time in cricket, in rugby, in all sports. When the home side are losing, fans tend to leave the stadium. It happens all the time in the Premier League. So, frankly, it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. I think it's also symptomatic of the way some of the media have been a little bit unfair to Qatar, if I'm honest. That's not to say there aren't the issues. Those issues are valid, but there are many things that happen normally. In sport, you often see the players leaving at the end. That's what happens. So I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, if I'm honest. You'll see England, if England are losing to Iran 3-0 later and there's 20 minutes to go, you might well see England fans leaving at the end because they couldn't possibly face the humiliation of being there when the final whistle was called. So it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, to be honest. It's what normally happens with home fans. And I guess you can only really judge the enthusiasm of the Qataris when we get to the next game that Qatar plays.
And I just have to ask you about, the criticisms that people like Gary Lineker, other BBC pundits have been getting for, instead of broadcasting the opening ceremony, deciding to talk about the human rights record of the host nation. Lots of criticism being levelled at him and others for that, and yet not the same level of criticism and scrutiny for the likes of Harry Kane, who are also, by some descriptions, virtue signalling, using that platform to extol their views. So why is it that the pundits get such a hard time, and yet the players seem to be OK to do it, do you think?
It's a good question, if I'm honest. It's difficult to say. Maybe there's a little bit more animosity towards the pundits, given they have a slightly different role to the players. It's honestly, it's a very difficult thing to say. So, yeah, I couldn't give you an answer on that, if I'm honest.
I just wanted to raise it because it struck me as there's hypocrisy about the hypocrisy as I was looking at the papers this morning. Paul, really fascinating talking to you this morning.
Well, that's I was going to say that's a very interesting point, the hypocrisy about the hypocrisy, and we end up going down this weird hypocrisy wormhole. And at the moment, there's definitely this looking for hypocrisy and inconsistencies in people's positions all the time, which frankly means that none of us anywhere can make any point, because there's probably some point in our lives where we did something that contradicted something that we said. So, yeah, we're going down what I call a hypocrisy wormhole, which can frankly be quite counterproductive.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, we're going to be speaking to you lots and lots throughout the course of the World Cup. First one underway for us. Really good to get excited about the game a little bit later on. Thank you. There we go. You excited? Will you be watching?
I will be watching, yeah. It's a lunchtime kick-off, so that's a novelty in itself. But I do think there is a key difference between people like Lineker and Kane, and that is like Gary Lineker always kind of displays his virtues. He lectures the rest of us about what we drive, what we eat, and how we travel, and the LGBTQ stuff. So I think Lineker does deserve a bit of stick. And anyway, it's part of the fun.
It's part of the fun. But Harry Kane is untouchable. Let us know your thoughts this morning, who you're supporting. I'll be watching both matches, I think. My husband's Welsh, so my kids will be behind Wales a little bit, but I'll be supporting England at 1 o'clock. Be interested to see if the schools down tools to let the kids watch it, because there is, let me tell you, World Cup fever sweeping primary schools and secondary schools up and down the country.
And there's a story on the front of the papers today about their expected record numbers of sickies.
Oh, gosh,
people not even bothering to turn up to work to go to the pub to watch the match.
So obvious if people do that. Look, will you be pulling a sickie? Will you be watching? How will you be getting swept up in all of the World Cup fever? Let us know this morning. But we also want to talk about theme tunes, because music's such an integral part of the World Cup, from Three Lions to Sweet Caroline. No World Cup is complete without a proper soundtrack to get fans into the football spirit.
And in East Yorkshire, a new anthem has been recorded with hopes it will become the unofficial soundtrack to England's tournament. Anna Riley has the full story.
We're gonna have to watch it on TV, because Qatar is way too hot for me. We're English, you know, we're used to the snow, we'll get back to a crisp, that's why we won't go potato.
Move over, Vindaloo and Three Lions. Half a Pound of Spuds by the Tight Tops is the newest World Cup anthem to be released. The video was masterminded by East Yorkshire footy fan Gavin Wynne, and it was shot in and around his hometown of Leven. And he has high hopes for its success.
The song's basically a light-hearted football song. A lot of these new football songs and the old ones tend to be very laddish. So we thought we'd create something a little bit more light-hearted, a bit more family, less oi-oi, more potato. We was originally going through what kind of thing, like an English dish. Vindaloo's been done, obviously. So we was thinking chips, and we didn't want nothing rhymed with it, so I was like, potato stuck from there. So we got Bodger and Badger involved, because he's a massive mashed potato fan. Everyone's kind of like that. It's a little bit surreal and a bit random. We've got a Gary Lineker doppelganger in there as well. Badgers, sunburnt Scousers. It's a complete mishmash.
Many local cast and crew were involved in the production, with the new inn featuring prominently.
It's been really exciting. It's created a real buzz about the place. It's really put Leven on the map, and it's been just such good fun, really, to have it here.
And aside from whether or not his World Cup anthem will become a chart topper, Gavin has high hopes for England's chances.
I think England have got a really good chance. I think they've got the best chance they've had for quite a long time. But who knows? It's a funny old game.
So come on, England, and as Gavin would sing, potato, potato. Anna Riley, GB News, Leven.
We're all going to be going a bit mad, aren't we, for the next couple of weeks?
I would have thought our shirts off like those lads.
It's a bit cold for that, thank God, over here. Anyway, look, at 6:15, we're going to bring you up to date with the latest headlines this morning.
Shamima Begum, who left the UK at the age of 15 to join the so-called Islamic State, is due to have her case heard today at the Court of Appeal. It comes after the Supreme Court ruled she was not allowed to come back to the UK to fight her citizenship case against the Home Office. She has denied any involvement in terror activities.
A 31-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of 2 young children in a fire in Nottingham. Fire and rescue were called to a flat in Farewell Close in Clifton in the early hours of yesterday morning. The children, aged just 1 and 3, were treated at the scene for smoke inhalation but later died in hospital.
A yellow wind warning is in place for southwest England and South Wales until this evening, with huge gusts expected of wind for large parts of the UK. Forecasters are also warning of freezing conditions, with temperatures expected to drop as low as -4 degrees Celsius in parts of the country this morning.
OK, time to talk politics now. Eurosceptic Tory MPs have reacted with anger to claims that the government could pursue a Swiss-style deal with the European Union.
Well, Number 10 has categorically denied that the idea is on the table, but last night Nadine Dorries warned Rishi Sunak not to pursue anything that could jeopardise the UK's sovereignty, adding that voters needed to know that Brexit was safe.
Well, let's talk about this a bit more with the Deputy Digital Political Editor of the Daily Express, Dan Falvey. Good morning to you. Downing Street have come out quite ardently and said, we're absolutely not considering this. This is not on the table. We understand the political implications of undermining the decision of the British public, which was to leave the European Union.
Yeah. And if you thought Brexit was done, you might have thought that that meant the debate was also done, but clearly not. We're still here now, we're still debating this, still talking about this. If there was any doubt in Number 10 about what people thought about this within their own party, they certainly know over the last 24 hours. There's been such anger from Conservative MPs at the idea of reopening this debate. Conservative MPs have been saying, look, this is done, we need to move on, and quite frankly, there's enough rifts already in the Conservative Party over the autumn statement. Lots of anger about those tax-raising measures that were put in place on Thursday. To now re-talk about Brexit, this is a party that is in danger of tearing itself to pieces.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, Lord Frost, Steve Barclay, they both came out and said this needs to be completely removed from the table. Nigel Farage was coming back, saying that the Tories deserve to be crushed if this is true. This is completely dominating the conversation. And lots of people, I think, with some justification, think there might be something in this. It's not just rumour.
And the other problem that they've got, though, is that, let's not forget, in 2019, Boris Johnson won a number of red wall seats in the north of England that normally vote Labour on the promise to get Brexit done. Polling shows that the Conservatives are struggling to keep hold of those votes, following the so-called Partygate scandal, following these tax-rising measures. This is not going to help them win an election. These measures, quite frankly, if this ever was being considered by Number 10, and they have said that it's categorically untrue, it's just not going to help them when it comes to try and convince voters next time.
But it is interesting, though, isn't it? I mean, what did Brexit mean to those people? Was it about trying to get control of our borders? Well, clearly, illegal immigration is as bad as it's ever been into this country. Brexit hasn't helped that. We did our own poll yesterday of our viewers and listeners, and they came back saying, actually, most of them wouldn't vote for Brexit if they had another chance. You had the OBR coming out and saying that Brexit will result in the UK's trade intensity being 15% lower in the long run than if the UK had remained in the EU. What are the ideological opposition or problems to having a Swiss-style relationship with the EU if people are saying, actually, it's not doing quite what we wanted it to do?
I think there's a couple of things that would be taken by Conservative MPs. That one, they'd say, you can't possibly know yet. They'd say, it takes time. We've just had a pandemic. We've now got a war in Ukraine. It's impossible to put it all down to Brexit, and they would say anyone who's claiming this is all because of Brexit is, quite frankly, making ideological political points. They'd say you need to give it time. Reassess it in 15 years' time, maybe, and yes, we can have that argument. I think the other point they'd make is that not only is it about giving it time, it's the fact that people don't seem to want to give it time. And some of this EU-Swiss-style deal would mean, for example, increased EU migration. So talking about the fact that this Brexit hasn't helped illegal migration, this wouldn't do that either.
No, but we have the CBI conference taking place today, Prime Minister heading there today, and they've come out and said labour shortages are holding Britain back. I mean, do we not have a problem with filling some of these roles? Would it not be good to be able to make it easier for Europeans to come in and fill many of these roles?
Let's not forget, the whole thing was about take back control in 2016. It was not about necessarily stopping immigration. It was about having control of it. There was nothing to say that in number 10 they can't ease some of those measures to make it easier for certain roles for more migration. That can be done outside the EU, and that's what Conservative MPs they'll be saying. They'll be saying, you don't need to do this by going back into the EU or going for a Swiss-style deal. You can do this by, in those areas where we need more people, relaxing the restraints on it.
Or Brexiteers might argue a better option, rather than relying on cheap immigration labour coming in that way, is to increase wages for British workers or to incentivise them to get back to work. So I think people are rightly concerned about the open borders of this, and also ECJ is part of the Swiss deal, so there's more oversight of laws from the EU, and also paying a fee. The Swiss pay a fee to the European Union. All of that added together, I think most Brexiteers fear is a severe rowing back. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way about it. You can't. This would be a complete rowback on Brexit and what was sold to the electorate. I think both in 2016, despite the fact everyone says that there was no clear plan, I think everyone agreed that what the arguments were being made by the Leave campaign in 2016 would not be for a Swiss deal. It'd also, though, be very different to what was being sold as Brexit at the last election in 2019.
Well, let's be clear, there's absolutely no chance it's going to happen, is there? I mean, both Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt know what a nightmare and a disaster, and probably, I suspect, even Sir Keir Starmer won't want to go down this road just because they know what an absolute storm this would brew. Which is interesting in itself, but certainly hasn't stopped, as you say, lots of people coming out very, very concerned about it. Quick question to you about the House of Lords. Sir Keir Starmer saying that it really needs to be an elected second chamber. What do you make of all of that?
Well, I think the polling consistently shows that actually the majority of the public think the current House of Lords system is out of date and it needs reform. The thing about when you say we're going to go for an elected second chamber, it opens up all sorts of questions constitutionally. What happens about, for example, when the King's speech happens? Does that happen in the House of Lords? How does it all work? Does that mean that it's proportional representation? Is it elected the same way that the House of Commons is? Are elections done at the same time? It's all great, but once you open up this rabbit hole, there's so much you need to, thrash out in detail-wise.
The biggest question I would say is who elects them? Is it the electorate, the public? Or is it jobs for the boys? Would it be MPs voting in a second chamber, which really, I think, is up to all
Makes it no difference. Lackeys and donors still get a sweet job.
And I don't think we've had any of those answers. Keir Starmer said, look, I want to reform it, but we need to look into it and set out exactly what those reforms are. So we don't actually have any clear plans to what Labour wants to do on that.
Well, perhaps we'll get a clearer idea during some of our political interviews with Labour a little bit later in the show. But Dan, for now, thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
We can take a break. After that, we'll be finding out if we could be living on the moon within a decade. I'm not a fan of this. I don't know about you. Let us know your thoughts. But first of all, your Monday forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet and windy in the southwest, cold with patchy fog in the northeast. Let's take a look at the details. So a wet and gloomy start to the week across southwest England as a band of heavy rain makes its way northeastwards this morning. Windy there with a risk of gales for coastal areas. It's initially going to be dry for southeast England and London, though rain will move in from the southwest through this morning with some heavy bursts at times. Wet and windy for South Wales as heavy rain pushes across the country, drier for longer in the north and east. After a chilly start to the new week, with some clear spells across the Midlands, rain will quickly spread in from the southwest with some heavy bursts at times, becoming increasingly breezy. A frosty start to Monday across northeast England with patches of fog or freezing fog in places. This may take some time to clear this morning, dry but cloudy as the fog lifts. It'll be a cold start, especially in eastern parts of Scotland, with a frost and fog patches. That fog slowly lifting this morning with a band of cloud and showers affecting eastern coasts. A wet morning across Northern Ireland with bursts of heavy rain that could cause travel disruption in some places, and a windy morning too, with a risk of gales for coastal areas. So rain will continue across southern and central England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and it will be drier further north with showers for eastern areas. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, We're
on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Back at 6:26 already. I can't believe time is flying. Lots more for you still to come on the programme this morning. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to the Minister for Immigration. That's Robert Jenrick. That's as the Confederation of British Industry, the CBI, urges the UK to use migration to plug labour shortages. A big topic of discussion this morning.
It is. And at 7:45, we'll be finding out how you can snag the best deals with Black Friday coming soon with consumer expert Kate Harcastle.
It's like Black Week nowadays, isn't it?
Black Month.
Black Month, yeah. There's so many deals. Actually, by the time it gets to Black Friday, you're a bit behind the curve, aren't you? Let us know your thoughts on any of the topics we're talking about this morning. We love to hear from you. It's the People's Channel. Send in your emails, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Well, a NASA official has speculated that humans could soon live on the moon for extended periods of time within decades. It follows the successful launch of the Artemis rocket last week, paving the way for the future lunar travel.
So could we soon be calling space home? Let's speak to the science broadcaster and astronomer, Mark Thompson, who joins us this morning. Good morning to you. Look, lots of people very excited about this, and it certainly seems as though, in terms of technology, in terms of scientific ambition, this is a big step forward. But there is a whole swathe of the population, people who are going through a cost of living crisis, people are looking at what's been discussed at COP27, going, really? Is this what we're spending all our money on? Where do you stand in the debate?
Do you know what? It's really different, isn't it? I think if I thought that the world's problems could be solved by stopping space exploration, then I'd be the first one to be lobbying NASA and other space agencies to say, do you know what? We shouldn't be spending this money. Let's put it to other places. But I just don't think throwing money at the problems, even the cost of living issues, I just don't think that's going to solve the problem. I think it's political issues that are going to be able to fix that first. But, we as species have always explored, and space is one of those areas we still will have that drive to explore for the future.
Is this about mineral exploration? Is it about forming a base to jump onto Mars? Or could it be used for things like, I don't know, exotic staycations on the moon?
Weekends away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think initially, we're certainly not going to the moon with the intention simply of depleting all its natural resources. The real drive for getting to the moon is to explore the rest of the solar system for humans to get out there in space. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of energy to launch out into space from the Earth because the Earth has got a massive, great, call it gravitational well. There's a great big pull of gravity that tries to keep things stuck to the Earth, and it takes big, powerful rockets to get out into space. So if we can establish a base on the moon, then that means that we can use that as a bit of a staging point to get out to the rest of the solar system, to Mars. It opens up a sort of a gateway to exploration, human exploration. So I think, it's the important next step to get humans out into the solar system. But unfortunately, much as I'd love the thought of going off to the moon for a bit of a lunar holiday, I think that's a little bit off in the future. I think we're looking probably at the next 10, 15, 20 years to get a fairly significantly established lunar base for astronauts to work on the surface of the moon. But hotels, I think they're probably going to be quite a little way off yet.
So just talk us through, the timeline, really, because just this week, last week, Artemis 1 launched during our show, so we took that live, and it was really exciting. But it had been much delayed, hadn't it, due to weather and a number of technical problems along the way. So it seems as though it is still quite a precarious thing to send people up into space. So how realistic is it that, I think, what's the ambition, 3-4 years' time, that will be a manned rocket, and then they're going to build this sort of revolving train station, if you like, sort of platform outside the moon where people can hop off and then do these moon landings. And just talk us through the likelihood of that happening in the timeline, if you will.
Yeah, it's like an extreme platform 9 3/4, really, isn't it? It's quite feasible, absolutely, that we'll get people back on the surface of the moon or back in lunar orbit within the next decade. It is still a precarious subject, a task to get people out into space. We talk rockets are big, complex pieces of machinery, and they sometimes go wrong. The weather is a complex beast, and it sometimes does things that we don't like and aren't conducive to sending rockets out into space. So it's always going to be a hit and miss thing to be able to get rockets out into space, even though we understand the technology and the science very, very well now. But yeah, we will get people back on the moon or around the moon within the next 10 years, 10, 20 years. I think the Artemis project is the perfect stepping stone. The next goal is to get people on board the next Artemis rocket, to get people to land on the surface of the moon again, since the Apollo missions back in the 60s and 70s. And if we don't do that, then we never are going to get there. So it's really critical that we do make these next steps.
OK, so how realistic is it that somebody like Elon Musk is going to be using this as a kind of portfolio extension? Because, I mean, let's face it, the people who can afford to do all this are billionaires like him. Is this a sort of land grab by billionaires that can take us on to things like, the Mars exploration later on? Or is this purely scientific, or is it going to be driven by private equity?
I think it's probably the exploration element. I think absolutely will be driven by organisations like NASA, European Space Agency. There is a great drive. There's nothing that can beat having a human being, scientist, engineer on the ground on another planet, on another world. Sending rovers to Mars is brilliant, but nothing beats a human being there to properly explore and to research. And robots are great and they do a fabulous job. It takes a lot of the risk out, but we do need to get people at these places to properly explore it. So I think it's really important that we do that. I think ultimately corporate organisations like the Elon Musk of the world will certainly get their foot in the door at some point. Not to take ownership, because there's an international agreement that says no one can take ownership of any planet or celestial body, so that's kind of covered politically. But absolutely, there'll be people that will soon jump on the bandwagon and try and get their foot in the door to commercialise space exploration at some point in the future. Already seen you can buy a trip out into space for like $500,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money. So eventually it will happen. It will start off as just something the rich will be able to afford, but eventually in probably a few, dare I say, centuries, eventually the price will come down and we'll all be able to go off on our holidays to the moon or Mars.
And yes or no, would you accept a freebie if you got given a golden ticket?
I would, but I'd be scared silly and I'd be screaming all the way up, I think.
Would you accept one?
I absolutely would. I'm a bit tall to be an astronaut. It's a bit better if you're a bit smaller.
Do you have to be sort of miniature?
Like a jockey.
Well, it probably rules me out as well. Mark Thompson, really good to get your thoughts this morning. Thank you very much. Science broadcaster and astronomer, talking about whether or not we could live on the moon in the next decade. Not for me, keeping my feet firmly on terra firma.
Well, that was super, really interesting. Anyway, stay with us. After the break, we'll be going through the papers with Chris Akabusi and Dawn Neeson.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:36. You're watching Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Here's what's making the front pages this morning.
The Sun leads with the Lions of Arabia as Captain Harry Kane vows to lift the nation when England take on Iran later today.
Here's the Mirror. It's all about hope and glory as England take the knee, and they wear pride armbands.
And the Daily Star asks, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Super Kane, as the England striker hopes to bring the trophy back to England.
And it's World Cup fever for the Mail as well. They have the shock claim that the UK could seek closer ties with the EU as well, with their headline, "Don't Betray Us on Brexit."
Meanwhile, The Telegraph covers both of those stories, as well as the cost of the pandemic for cancer sufferers.
So that is how your front pages are shaping up. Let's go inside the papers today with the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and the Olympian Chris Akabusi. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Right. Back to you as well, Chris. Nice to see you again. Dawn, let's start, shall we, with the Sun, Lions of Arabia. See what they did there.
Yeah, nice. It was very clever, wasn't it? Yeah, who'd have thought? Right, well, finally, the papers are getting involved in the World Cup. Normally, this would have been going on for weeks in the build-up, and it's just today that the papers are done it. I think there is that wariness for all the titles about how much support do they show to this, what has to be said is one of the most controversial World Cups that I can ever remember, and probably in history. And also the most expensive, 195 billion, because they had to build all the stadiums from scratch, because it's not a footballing nation. In any case, the Sun are doing what red top tabloids are put on earth to do, and do the rah-rah thing. This is a brilliant picture of Harry Kane. But the story is this, whether to wear the rainbow armband, obviously supporting LGBTQ++ rights, and Harry Kane is determined to wear it, as well as the entire squad taking the knee, and I think the Welsh team are going to do the same. Now, the problem is that the Qatar has said that if you do this, that can be an offence, a footballing offence, and you might receive a yellow card for it. Might. I mean, in theory, it might not happen, but they have said that. And obviously, if you get a yellow card, then you get that booking, and then you make a stupid little tackle, or you wear the armband again, you get 2 yellow cards, you're out, you get a red card. And the third game England play is against Wales. Yeah. So in theory, both teams could be playing without their captains if they insist on the armband and the taking of the knee. So, I mean, look, this what, you know, of course you do want to get behind our teams out there. However, there is just so much controversy. You know, if you're a woman, it's very difficult. Obviously, the LGBTQ plus community, and I can't get my head around those glittering stadiums that they're all sitting in and cheering on the players. Cost 6,500 lives. I'm sorry, I think that price is too much for this. Football, it's not a footballing nation. I personally don't think it should be played there. And Isabel, I missed my first ever World Cup opening ceremony yesterday and I went to the hairdressers.
Did you?
I did the girl thing. I wasn't going to watch it.
Yeah, washed your hair instead.
Yes, well, I paid someone to wash it.
Yeah, no, I know.
Because, you know, the way women are treated in that country, personally, I
It wasn't shown, though, was it, the opening ceremony?
It wasn't shown, and I saw quite a lot of people on social media with mixed views on that. It was a sort of political decision by the BBC not to. My question in all of this is, how has the world changed so much since 2018? Russia hosted the World Cup then, didn't they? They've got a dreadful human rights record. Was there the same amount of clamour and political condemnation from the BBC and others? Obviously, we weren't at war with Ukraine, with Russia at that point, but they had already invaded Crimea, a long track record of human rights abuses. We had Winter Olympics in Beijing as well. It's not the first time a sporting event's been held in a country with dodgy morals.
No, and again, I think this is where we actually show our sort of two-tone, two-way, two faces here, because there's so many things that we do around the world with dodgy regimes when it suits us. So, like you said, you know, I actually wrote down a whole... Tommy Smith and John Carlos, remember in '68, when they did their political statement. Now, I was a young boy then, I was 10 years of age, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was in the children's home, and they tried to explain to me about the racism that was going on. 72 Munich, do you remember 72 Munich? Where there was
10 years before I was born, so...
Oh, sorry. Oh, dear. but it was a real stark with the Olympic Games. We had these blank seats where the Palestinian organisation, not the PLO, but a Palestinian organisation had gone in and killed some Israelis. Moscow, I remember Moscow, that's my sort of... Moscow and LA. Politics and sports really don't mix very well, and you know, the effect can be traumatic. Now, I'll be much more impressed if these guys were taking a knee and having the armband and therefore really missed the game. If the penalty was that England really didn't play in the World Cup, that they actually walked off the stage, that all the biggest nations didn't go, then I'd be much more impressed. But wearing a band, no.
Well, Harry Kane might get a yellow card for that, and if he wears it twice, then that means...
But you know, but the word might means no, it won't happen.
You don't think it would happen?
No chance. But it'd be great if it did. So if Gareth Southgate, Harry Kane, and the English team really believe in this, take the hit. If they say 2 strikes and you're out, go out, then we will see what we really mean about it.
Yeah, and would I suppose you level that accusation at Gary Lineker as well, who has been criticised? You've chosen this story inside the Mirror, page 6 and 7. If you really do have objections to it, don't take the gig, don't cover the...
Yeah, well, so I don't... No, because I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm thinking, we do business with these guys every single day. They're big banks whose major shareholders are Qataris. Big retailers, major shareholders with Qataris. One of the weaknesses of Western capitalism is that we will sell our values and our morals for money. There's a statement in the Bible, which I used to read a lot, where the root of all evil is money. And you see it in such... We sell our souls. And so why would you have a go at these footballers who... Because if the Olympics was there, I would go there.
But I think actually that's a key point, and that is why I think it is different about Qatar, because selling your soul for money is what happened at the start. When the tournament went their way, there was this huge stink around the fact the World Cup had basically been for sale. Yeah. And it shouldn't ever have gone to Qatar. No. And it was all about money.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is the key difference this time around, because it's like, this is sport for sale by countries who want to whitewash their national image, and that's what's happened.
That's exactly what's happened with Qatar. I mean, and changing the whole timing as well, playing it in the middle of the domestic winter season here. It's ludicrous. But the Mirror, Chris's choice here, has gone on the fact that the BBC did not show the opening ceremony and instead gave us basically a political lecture on why it shouldn't be there. But here we are, we're all getting paid a lot of money to be here and talk about it because we are raising awareness of the human rights issues. Look, you need to be pretty stupid if you're not aware of the human rights issues in that country. I don't actually need Gary Lineker, 1.3 million, to lecture me on the problems women have in that country.
But you don't have the same problem with Harry Kane. You don't feel like he's lecturing you if you're
Isabel, I don't think anyone should be there.
Yeah,
I absolutely do not think. I completely agree with Chris. You've got to have some. Taking the knee, wearing an armband. You are paying lip service here. That is what's going on. It is not. If you really, really believe that you want to raise awareness of human rights and really make a statement, you do not go.
And here's the way, the footballer, I tell you what, Premier League footballer, because you've got to be out there, the gay footballer, say, I'm gay, I'm playing football, what are you going to do about it?
I'll tell you what, it'd be even better if it was a Muslim gay footballer who was
absolutely,
there, who came out, because they still face the death penalty.
That's right, they'd be in terrible.
Well, we've got Muslim footballers in the Premier League, so step up, fellas.
Absolutely. I really hope someone does.
Let's turn our attention to something a little bit less controversial, shall we? Dawn, you've chosen Brexit.
Said nobody ever. Dawn has chosen Brexit, by the way.
Great line.
Thanks, Isabel. I have been writing and talking about this subject now since, 2016. It feels like it's never, ever going to go away. So, you pay your money, you take your choice with this morning's papers. And which one is this in? This is the front page of the Mail, isn't it? Brexit is there. So half football and half Brexit. It's so controversial. This is the hint that Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are seeking closer ties with the EU in what is being termed as a Swedish-style deal. Swiss-style deal.
Yeah.
Sorry. Similar. This is how much I'm really involved in this subject. No, in a Swiss style, which means basically you are part of the free trade area, you're part of the Schengen area, and you don't need visas to travel there. And that is what Theresa May was sort of talking about in 2018. You're looking at me like, you know more about this than I do.
Yeah.
And that really led to resignations and the EU saying you just want to cherry pick the nice bits of being the EU. But it does mean if we go to a Swiss deal, then we have to sign back up to the rules and regulations of the EU again. And that's the controversy. Will it happen? Will England bring the World Cup home? I don't know.
No.
I can tell you the answer to that. It won't happen.
No,
there's no way it will happen.
No,
it's just even, the Labour Party. Yeah, it's just political suicide, and everybody knows
the Red Wall vote, basically. I mean, they absolutely won the last election because of Boris Johnson and the whole Brexit thing. And if they do this Swiss-style deal, right country this time, that's it. It's toast.
Chris, what do you think?
We've got to give Brexit a chance. This short-term view is no good. It's the art of the long view. There was a saying, my parents used to say in Nigeria, power to the people, but only on election day. There was, there was a vote, we're out, get over it, let's work towards making it happen. And it doesn't happen overnight. Yes, there are going to be teething problems and challenges, but the art of the long view, it's a 20-year deal, it's a 30-year deal, but we've got into it and we will get out of it. Yeah. Give it a chance.
To be fair, Downing Street have said they do not want a Swiss-style deal with the EU. That is not an angle they are pursuing, and they have denied any conversations have gone on.
Yeah.
I love the suggestion the government is going to do this.
I love the idea of a bit of trading agreements and travelling, but my concern when I voted Brexit was closer military union and economic union and us not being able to vote people out. Well, actually, looking at the last few weeks, we can't vote people out anyway, but there you go. That's a different story.
We have to leave it there.
Them in anymore.
That's what I mean.
Guys, I feel like we're only just touching the surface there. So much to get through with the papers, but we will have more from both Dawn Neeson and Chris Saccobusi just after 7:30. Thank you both very much indeed. We're going to take a look at this morning's headlines quickly. It is 6:48, and the top story this hour, Shamima Begum, who left the UK at the age of 15 to join the so-called Islamic State, is due to have her case heard at an appeal court later today. This comes after the Supreme Court ruled she was not allowed to come to the UK to fight her citizenship case against the Home Office. She's denied any involvement in terror activities.
And the Prime Minister will address business leaders today as the country braces for £25 billion worth of tax rises and spending cuts. Rishi Sunak is expected to focus on innovation in his speech at the annual CBI conference, using Brexit freedoms to strengthen the UK economy.
Manchester United footballer Mason Greenwood is set to appear in court today charged with attempted rape. The 21-year-old's accused of assault as well as controlling and coercive behaviour. All 3 charges relate to the same woman. Now, the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has survived another eviction in the I'm a Celebrity jungle.
Last night, she received a letter from former aide and now girlfriend Gina Colindangelo, who praised him for his Bush Tucker trial bravery, although she was less enamoured by his dancing.
Dear Matt, wow, watching you in the jungle has been quite the experience. We are particularly impressed that you conquered your fear of snakes. We are less sure about the dancing, although we saw that you almost got the electric slide thanks to Scarlett. Gina, kiss, 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 kiss.
It was lovely to have a message from home. It's a long time without hearing from your loved ones.
Sticks in the craw. It really sticks in the craw.
Let's speak to our showbiz reporter, Stephanie Tetchy, joins us in the studio this morning. Imagine being Matt Hancock's ex-wife.
Just the salt in the wound, because, you know, during this whole show, he's spoken openly of his love for Gina. And as well, I think Matt has actually come out looking good and their relationship, because obviously everybody was shocked when we saw this video of them kissing while he's still a married man.
The booty grab.
Yeah. Yes, the booty grabbing, and she was a married woman, but they've actually gone on to show that their love is for keeps. You know, she's out there in Australia at the moment supporting him, and as that letter suggested, she is actually quite proud of him. And you know,
quite proud of him, despite the dancing. I have to say, I don't know if you saw that doing the rounds on social media. I tried to share the reel, but I'm not quite technologically advanced enough to work out how to do it. But I couldn't stop watching it over and over. It was just so bad.
With the dancing and all that kind of stuff. But you know what Matt has done? Because, you know, at the beginning there was a big uproar about him going on the show. But what he said, the reason why he wanted to go is because he wanted to connect with the public, and that's what he's doing now. People thought he would be the first campmate out, and he's not. And I actually do predict he may get to the final, because now we're seeing Matt Hancock, the man. I was going to diss him because he hadn't mentioned dyslexia, but then last night he opened about his battle with dyslexia. So he is connecting with the public. He's done the Bush Tucker trials, 6 of them quite well. He's been a good sport. So the tide is changing for Matt Hancock, which I know you're not happy about.
Well, I've got to say, I do find the whole spectacle quite distasteful. The fact, you know, a lot of people think this guy should be on trial.
Yeah.
You know, not in the jungle, you know, for what he did. I mean, all those people that couldn't see their elderly relatives during lockdown, what he did to the country, his infidelity, is now here's his missus, she's great, they're in love. It's like, well, hang on a minute, you destroyed a relationship.
Yeah.
You've destroyed the country in many ways, and now here you are being feted, and you know, he's on the verge, of a book deal, or...
Yeah, but the thing is, all politicians mess up. And we always get that sorry statement from them. And Matt's actually gone one step further, and he's actually thrown himself into this reality TV show to show, yes, to confess that he has messed up, but actually showing how he's trying to rectify that. And I think this is why the public is actually seeing an actual politician owning up to what they've done. It doesn't make it right what he's done.
It's absolutely fascinating, because we spoke to so many people just before he went in, PR experts, all saying this is a disaster for him. This has been a PR gamble that has really paid off. Sticking with PR gambles, though, can we talk about Joe Lycett? I mean, he famously sort of trolled Laura Kuenssberg's first political broadcast when he came on and started aping Liz Truss, and got great PR for himself there. He's done it again this time, all about the World Cup.
About David Beckham. So Joe Lycett, he's a proud pansexual. In case our viewers don't know, it's someone who's attracted to all genders, and he's been quite an advocate for LGBTQ. He's been the advocate for LGBTQ, and he's been appalled that David Beckham has been one of the faces of the Qatar. And he last week sent an email, a public email to his David Beckham's PR saying, look, I've daftly said that I would burn £10,000 if David Beckham does not pull away from the Qatar World deal, which he hasn't done, and David Beckham hasn't responded to him. So yesterday we saw him burn £10,000. It's not illegal, so he's well within his right to do it, but he just wanted to make a statement that, you know what, David Beckham is supporting a World Cup which is against LGBTQ.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Stephanie Tetchy, thank you very much indeed.
See you in a bit.
Now, the government says it remains absolutely committed to cracking down on scammers stealing cash from hard-working families.
As part of these measures, the Security Minister will be convening a meeting of the Joint Fraud Task Force to plot out the next steps. Let's speak to the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, now.
Good morning. Tell us more then about this task force.
Good morning. Well, economic crime affects all of us, and there are millions of frauds, large and small, happening right across the country every year. And so it's incredibly important that we use all the resources we can, from local police forces right up to our security services, to tackle it, so we can help people to ensure they get justice when this happens. And so the Security Minister and the Home Secretary are convening a task force to bring all of law enforcement together, along with the high street banks and other agencies, to really get a grip on this important issue.
OK, well, I'm sure a lot of people will be very supportive of that move, unlike suggestions that were first reported in the Sunday Times yesterday, that there could be some discussion or at least exploration of the idea of a sort of Swiss-style relationship with the EU. Now, I know Downing Street has denied this, but as somebody yourself who voted to remain during the referendum in 2016, you'll obviously accept there are benefits in terms of trade to having closer alignment with the European Union. Can you categorically deny that these conversations are going on behind the scenes? Because we know that Chancellor has said there are real barriers that he wants to try and overcome.
Yeah, I don't know where that story came from, but it's completely untrue. We have no intention of pursuing that kind of arrangement. There are respectable arguments either way, but we have a settled position now as a country, and we reached an agreement with the European Union in 2019 and 2020, and we're moving forward on that basis. Of course, there are opportunities now to improve our trading relationship, as there are to improve our security and our immigration relationship with the European Union, but we're not interested in reopening the fundamental position that we reached with the EU a few years ago, and we're much more focused now on the opportunities that we can find as a country, as indeed the Chancellor and the Prime Minister set out in the budget, looking at how we can improve financial services, life sciences, other economic relationships, and take advantage of the freedoms that we have as a country now we've left the European Union.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the autumn statement, because the CBI, who are holding a big conference today, and the Prime Minister will be doing a speech there, came out and said, look, Truss's economic plan seemed to be obsessed with growth, whereas Hunt's economic plan seems to be obsessed with inflation. But we want both. Where's the jam tomorrow? And they're coming out and saying, look, we have this huge problem with filling labour roles. There are labour shortages. We need to get people into this country, otherwise we're going to have a dormant economic decade. Would an EU-Swiss-style relationship help solve that problem? Is the CBI sort of saying that? Are you getting that hint from them?
Well, firstly, I don't agree that the budget was silent on the issue of growth. Tackling inflation is the foundation of everything. That gives us financial security. That enables people to pay their mortgage with the lowest possible interest rate. It enables businesses to be able to borrow without paying higher rates. And unless we have that financial security and stability, we won't be able to get the economy firing on all cylinders. And that is what the budget set out to achieve. It was also a budget which invested over £500 billion in our infrastructure, new trains and railways, and hundreds of millions more in R&D, helping us to be a world-leading science country. But on the question of migration, I think the British public want us to bring net migration down. The last year has been an exceptional one. We've seen over 150,000 visas issued for Ukrainians to take refuge here, and we've seen thousands of students and expatriates return to the UK post-COVID. But in the medium term, we want to get migration down. And there's 5 million economically inactive people in this country alone, including over 500,000 who left the workforce as a result of COVID. And so employers should really be looking to the domestic market first, and we in the government are prioritising investment in education and in skills so that we can tackle key labour shortages here first of all.
Robert, as the Minister for Immigration, a huge sticking point, of course, is the numbers of illegals that have been coming over the Channel this year. We spent £220 million with France since 2018, a further £62 million last week, yet 40,000 illegals have come this year. That's a tripling of where we were a couple of years ago with France. You have your own MPs in Peterborough, in Ipswich, Lee Anderson, a Tory rebel in Ashfield, saying this is absolutely outrageous. Residents in Skegness are going to meetings. They're all fed up with asylum seeker hotels being dumped under with no consultation. This is this is a topic that you seriously need to get to grip with, or it could seriously sink the Conservatives. Isn't that right?
Well, look, we are all in agreement in the Conservative Party. We believe in strong borders and controlled migration, and we're deeply concerned about the number of people crossing the Channel. People should not be making that perilous journey. These are illegal immigrants, and we can see the difference between those fleeing genuine persecution, human rights abuse around the world, and economic migrants coming from countries such as Albania, which are demonstrably safe countries. We're taking action on many different fronts, and the Home Secretary and I are working round the clock to tackle this. I think the new deal with France will make a difference. I don't want to overstate that because, as you say, we've had agreements in the past, but it does do two useful things. Firstly, it means more French officers on those beaches in northern France intercepting the boats. Today they intercept about 40%. That's going to rise significantly with a 40% increase in the number of officers. And secondly, and very importantly, there will now be British personnel in a joint control room in France, using all the intelligence that we gather from our police and security services, people and organisations like GCHQ, ensuring that information is passed to the French in real times, and we can watch and help them to get on the ground, bust those people smuggling gangs, capture the boats, intercept the crews and the migrants as they're leaving the beaches. And so I think it will make a difference, but you have to view it as just one part of a broader campaign, and we are working with the Prime Minister on every front we can to tackle the issue.
I think a lot of people will think they've heard this kind of tough talk before. Priti Patel talked tough like this, Suella Braverman talks tough like this. Is it simply more rhetoric? I mean, for example, people like Lee Anderson would like to see the boats towed straight back. I mean, if that means a diplomatic incident with France, is that not worth a price worth paying? The electorate are just sick and to death of the rhetoric now.
Well, I agree that the public want to see action, not words, and that is exactly what we're setting out to do. This is a very complex issue. All countries around the world are facing this in a global migration crisis. And that's one of the reasons why the Prime Minister has been raising it with his international partners, first in Egypt and now latterly at the G7. But what Suella Braverman and I are going to do is focus on a number of different fronts. We are going to be pushing the diplomatic front. We are going to be looking if there are legal changes that we need to make here in the UK to beef up our laws. We are working with countries which are safe, like Albania. And we're also going to be making it harder for people to work here in the UK by tackling illegal employers. And that links back to the discussion we had earlier about fraud. We need to make sure that companies employing people against the law or committing fraud really get the full force of the law bearing down on them. It's not going to be an easy situation to tackle, but we, the Conservative Party, the Home Secretary and I are fully focused on it as one of our key priorities as a government.
OK, Minister, look, I know we have to let you go because you've got a busy morning of interviews. If you wouldn't just mind indulging me with a yes or no answer, is Harry Kane right to wear a One Love LGBTQ+ armband during the World Cup today in the opening match against Iran?
I think he is. It's completely at his liberty to do that. We are a country that believes in freedom and liberty and values like protecting LGBT communities, and it's right that Harry Kane or the British team support them if that's what they want to do.
OK, very kind of you to give me that answer. Listen, Robert Jenrick, Immigration Minister, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Those of you eagle-eyed amongst us will have heard the Big Ben bonging for 7 o'clock. Then that means that we've overrun the top of the programme. We're going to take a quick break.
And the Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign today, playing their opening match against Iran.
A very good morning. It is actually 7:03 this Monday morning. It is the 21st of November. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
England and Wales launched their World Cup campaigns today with the Three Lions facing off against Iran at 1 p.m. It comes amid continued controversy with England captain Harry Kane potentially facing an instant yellow card if he wears his rainbow armband during the match.
Tory MPs have reacted with anger to claims Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are considering a Swiss-style arrangement with the European Union. In an attempt to quell rebels, Number 10's insisted the option is off the table.
And migrant workers should be used to fix the UK's labour shortages. The CBI will warn the government today. The Minister for Immigration, Robert Jenrick, told us the government are working around the clock to tackle the small boat crisis.
So let us know, did he persuade you, or do you think, as Martin suggests, this is just more tough talk? Let us know your thoughts about that, and indeed the staving off of any suggestion of a sort of more friendly Brexit arrangement, getting a lot of people very, very unhappy. Let us know your views on all of the topics this morning. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Well, the Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign today, facing Iran in their opening game at 1 p.m.
But, of course, this comes amid all that controversy around England captain Harry Kane, who could face an instant yellow card for wearing the One Love armband in support of LGBTQ+ rights.
Well, Wales also play their first game this evening, facing off against the USA.
And yesterday's opener ended with Qatar losing 2-0 to Ecuador, making them the first World Cup hosts to lose their opening match in the tournament's 92-year history.
We shouldn't laugh, but let's go now to Qatar, where reporter Paul Hawkins is waiting for us. Hello, mate.
Hi, Martin. Yeah, we're in the Souk Waqif. This is like the market area in Doha, and I'll be honest, the fans are building already. In fact, look over here, some Dutch fans here. They're playing Senegal later. Hi, guys. There you go, some Dutch fans. How are you? All right? Great. Great. That's what you look like, don't you? Look, you got the flag. And shh, don't tell them. Let's see. Look, yeah, exactly. There's fans everywhere here, and over here there's a table just to my right, and there's fans everywhere. Frankly, you know, lots of Wales fans, lots of England fans. It's also a big day, of course, for Wales. They're playing the World Cup since 1958, and also a big day for Iran. England kick off against Iran at 4 o'clock. We can speak to a couple of Iranian fans now, Neymar and Cyrus. Good to speak to both of you.
Pleasure.
First of all, I have to ask, you've got that T-shirt there. This is just explain for us what this means for the Iranian national team. And for you, given what's happening in your country, just hold up that T-shirt for us, just so the viewers at home can see it.
All we want is, basic human rights. That's all, we ask for people back home, is to just give them basic human rights. They're not asking, for much else. But at the end of the day, this is about football, and we're here to support our, national team. But also deep in our hearts, this is for the people,
Well, how do you think the Iranian players are going to behave? Because I know that a lot of domestic Iranian football's been played behind closed doors. Correct. The players haven't been celebrating goals. Correct. Are they even going to sing the national anthem?
Well, we're all going to see that together. But one thing I do know is, Gareth Southgate brought up a good point. The English team is going to take a knee tonight, for everybody. And hopefully the Iranians can follow as well. But, all the fans, we're here to support, and hopefully we can win.
Yeah, so tell us a bit, Cyrus, about the Iranian national team. We don't know much about it in England. Just tell us who we should be looking out for. How have they been playing? Are you feeling confident?
Yeah, absolutely. We got Mehdi Taremi, who obviously plays for Porto. He's Champions
top three scorer.
Yeah, he's a good player. We've got half of the team play outside in Europe. Jahan Bakhsh plays in Holland. We have Kudus plays in Premier League. So it's a good team. It's a good team. Carlos Queiroz came back. I think a lot of us are excited about that. So, yeah, we're looking forward to the game today, and hopefully we qualify.
Yeah. Well, can you beat England? Is it possible, if maybe not probable?
It's always possible. It's football, right? That's the beauty of the game.
Football. Yeah. He's absolutely right. 90 minutes, we play hard, we're going to press, and, piggybacking on what you guys asked, players to watch out, I definitely want to give a shout-out to Muharrami. If you guys watch, definitely Champions League football. He does play for Dynamo, and I think he's a standout right back, and I think he's going to be, a spotlight on the national team.
Yeah, so it's good. So it's a really big day, not football-wise, and in terms of how the Iranian national team maybe mark what is happening in their country on the world stage.
Yeah. No, I mean, like we said earlier, I mean, that is what it's about. It's about the freedom for the people. I mean, we're seeing a revolution, by the women that we've never seen in a time. We've never seen that. And, that's the beginning. But it goes back to what you said. It is a football match, 90 minutes of pure entertainment. And, we're going to win 1-0, 69th minute. Kadiman Saudi Farad is going to score the goal.
Right. You heard it here first. Maybe you've got a different prediction.
Hey, listen, I hope that happens. I'd be happy with the draw.
Yeah. And then you're facing.
He's more of a conservative.
He's more of a conservative, right?
A bit more realistic, but.
And you're facing Wales also in the group. You worried about Wales? Worried about the USA?
Listen, at the end of the day, it's a European team. It's Wales. First time in the World Cup, I think.
First time since 1958.
Right, okay, so almost the first time. So,
almost.
they're also excited. They think they have a chance. So it's going to be a good game. US is another interesting game. I went to the France 98 when we beat US 2-1. Yeah. Excellent game, exciting. I think it's going to be the same here.
It's fourth World Cup, guys.
Yeah.
Fourth World Cup. They're 98 when we beat the USA.
Well, given that, how are you finding this World Cup in Qatar? It's quite a significant historic World Cup compared to the others you've been to.
Yeah, I'm from the Middle East, so I'm excited that Qatar is hosting this tournament. I was in Russia 2018, slightly different vibe, but yeah, again, second day, so we're all excited. Yeah.
Really good to talk to you, sir. Really good to talk to you.
Pleasure, guys.
Really.
Thank you
and enjoy the game later. Yeah. Have you? By the way, are there any Iranian songs? What do the Iranian fans sing?
Well,
there's going to be a lot.
There's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot.
You can give us a little burst, could you?
I mean, my favorite one is do 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 Iran.
Even I can learn that, and that's saying something. Thanks for speaking to us, guys. Cheers, thank you. Cheers, thank you very much. So there's a little flavour of how the Iranian fans are feeling then. People milling around the Souk Waqif as the sun continues to rise. It continues to get hotter, and by the time England play, it'll be about 30 degrees. Much easier for the Welsh later when they take on the USA, when it'll be only, I say only, but it'll still be a much more comfortable 25 degrees.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Paul. I love that. Iran. Even I can remember that. We'll be back with Paul throughout the course of the morning and indeed the week or so that he is there for us. Lots of people getting in touch this morning, haven't they, Martin? What are they saying about the World Cup?
Yeah, they have. So everyone's talking about the politics, but let's get on with the game now. Patrick has said now the players have all taken their money, they should just get on with it. Not going would have really shown their ethics. That would have been the true statement to not turn up at all in the first place,
Rosie, I agree with Chris Akabusi. If the England and Wales football teams feel so strongly, they should just come home. Sam says, I totally support Kane's decision to wear the LGBTQ+ band. We need greater support and recognition of queer identities. Keep those thoughts coming in, as always. Now, let's turn our attention to the row that's happening in the Conservative Party as Eurosceptic Tory MPs have reacted with anger, quite frankly, to claims that the government could pursue a Swiss-style deal with the European Union.
Well, of course, Number 10 has categorically denied that the idea is even on the table, but last night Nadine Dorries warned Rishi Sunak not to pursue anything that could jeopardise the UK's sovereignty, adding that voters needed to know that Brexit was safe.
Well, let's get some more on this with the Deputy Digital Political Editor of the Daily Express, Dan Falvey. Good to see you, Dan. Look, we just had the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, on this, and we pressed him on it. And despite being a Remainer himself, he very much dismissed this as, and he said he can categorically say none of these conversations have been happening behind the scenes, and he didn't see any good argument for this to happen. It's not going to happen, is it?
It would be electoral suicide for the Conservative Party to consider reopening this. Given the bitter vows we've had for the last 5 or so years during negotiations, to reopen this now would be disastrous for their polling. But also, I don't think anyone really wants this. There has been polling in the last few days that suggests that a majority of people would now vote to remain in the EU if there's a referendum now. But that is a different poll to should there be another referendum. And that the polling still shows quite clearly that people think, we've done this, we need to get on with it and get on with it as it is now.
Another thing that Mr Jenrick talked about was the failure to control our borders as it stands, the illegals coming over, the Albanians, and there are Tory rebels standing up now in Peterborough, in Ipswich, in Ashfield, Skegness, saying, look, you have to get a grip of the situation. What's the mood on the ground amongst the electorate about this topic? In the Red Wall, surely it's a huge factor for the next election.
It absolutely is. It's the second most important factor to them after the cost of living crisis. And what that means is that it is going to be high on their minds when it comes to who they pick to vote for next time round. The Conservatives keep saying, the government keeps saying, we're going to do something about this. We're taking a strong stance on illegal immigration. But we've seen them do this now for a number of years. We saw they were saying, during the Brexit referendum that get Brexit done, we'll be able to solve this problem. We then saw it was the new deal for migration, that would sort it. Then it was the Rwanda policy. That hasn't done it either. And the danger is, the more the Conservatives keep saying, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, and it doesn't work, the closer we get to the next election, and voters can sit there going, hold on, you promised to fix this, and you still haven't done it. And the danger is for them, it nullifies the issue. Why would you vote for the Conservatives to protect your borders if you think that actually they're just as the same as Labour on it.
And how does the government navigate this so they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as it were? Because we do have a labour shortage problem in this country. We do need workers to come in from abroad. It's not me saying that. The CBI say that we need to increase migration to tackle what they describe a dormant economic decade. How does the government respond to that without upsetting those parts of the country that want to make sure that the country is pretty much drawbridge up?
Well, look, the whole thing in 2016 was take back control. It wasn't let's stop immigration altogether. And there are areas where there are real labour shortages. I think everyone admits that. We can see that. It's about having that control. And the government would be saying, look, and critics actually, because the government maybe aren't doing enough on this. What they should be doing is saying, in these areas where we've got shortages, we can relax the visa rules and get more people in, but it's through our schemes. It's we're choosing who comes. We're getting them into the jobs that we need them in, not just uncontrolled immigration that we had when we were in the EU.
OK, branching out slightly, the case of Shamima Begum is due today.
Yes.
The Special Immigration Appeals Commission, you remember, she was categorically told that she was not allowed to return to the UK as she posed a danger. This is another topic that really gets the electorate lit up. What's the mood on the ground? Are people saying that we should soften our position towards her? She should be allowed to return? Or are the British public, especially Conservative voters, still quite resolute? No, you're a problem, you should stay out of the country.
It's another one of those divisive issues, but on the whole, I think the public are resolute. No. You went and, whether she denies that she was involved in any activities, but she did go to see her when it was quite clear it was that you should not be doing so. And I think the British public on the whole are very clear that, quite frankly, that should be the end to the matter.
And I suppose this is the end of the line legally for her. This Special Immigration Appeals Court, there will be no further sort of recourse for her after this, but it has huge implications if she is permitted back into the country, because I think it's something like 150 other Brits who've had their citizenship removed, and I think 60 others who are just in these camps at the moment wanting to come back to the UK. If she gets back in, because she's no longer deemed a threat, perhaps it could open the floodgates to other jihadis who went off to Syria to fight in the name of the caliphate. And
I think the government has been very clear on its position on this, that they do not think she should come back, and I think that is why they haven't wanted to, in the past, even consider it, because the moment you do for one, you open up the floodgates potentially. They'll be keeping a very, very close eye on this, and I imagine that they will already be drawing up backup plans for if this ruling does not go their way.
Yeah, well, interesting. We actually are going to be speaking to a human rights lawyer about this very topic a little bit later on, Harjap Singh Bangal. But for now, Dan Falvey, thank you very much indeed for your assessment of all the politics of the day. It's 7:16. Should we bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour?
The Prime Minister will address business leaders today as the country braces for £25 billion worth of tax rises and spending cuts. Rishi Sunak is expected to focus on innovation in his speech at the annual CBI conference, using Brexit freedoms to strengthen the UK economy.
A 31-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of 2 young children in a fire in Nottingham. Fire and rescue were called to a flat in Fair Isle Close in Clifton in the early hours of yesterday morning. The children, both girls, were aged 1 and 3 and were treated at the scene for smoke inhalation but later died in hospital.
And a yellow wind warning is in place for south-west England and South Wales until this evening, with huge gusts of wind expected for large parts of the UK. Forecasters are also warning of freezing conditions, with temperatures expected to drop as low as -4 degrees Celsius in parts of the country this morning.
Now, we were just touching on that debate with Dan Falvey there in relation to Shamima Begum. The latest appeal in her case, she's, of course, this 23-year-old woman who left Britain as a, I think, 15-year-old or 15-year-old schoolgirl to join so-called Islamic State. That appeal begins today.
Well, the hearing, which is expected to last 5 days, comes after the Supreme Court refused Miss Begum entry to the UK to challenge the removal of British citizenship.
Well, joining us now is human rights lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal. Good morning to you. Look, what will Shamima Begum's argument be today? Because the MI5 and indeed the British government have been absolutely categorically clear in all of this, that anyone that travelled overseas as a jihadist to join jihadists is a threat to national security. How has that changed?
That has changed with new information coming to light that the British government and the police have been covering up some information that the Canadian spies were involved in this case, and that they actually helped and traffic and helped get out of the UK. Obviously, as a 15-year-old trying to get into the Middle East on their own, you'd have to admit it's pretty hard without going past border checks, without an appropriate adult with you. I'm sure our kids probably couldn't do it, but it's, now new evidence has come to light that she was not unassisted. She was assisted. She was talking online to people, and a Canadian spy is actually involved. And this information wasn't given to us initially. It's actually come to light now. And the government's had, been very sheepish about it. And hopefully over the next 5 days, we'll get the bigger picture as to what's actually happened here.
It was actually evident all those years ago that they were being assisted and aided and abetted to go out and travel over the border. I don't think that's anything particularly new. But what's the special legal loophole this time? This is looking at child grooming. Is this using the Modern Slavery Act? Is it that kind of legal loophole that we've seen being used for the Albanians coming in? Is that today's route?
No, that's slightly different because they're claiming they're adult victims of human trafficking, whereas in this, she was a child. And although we know she's been assisted, we never knew she was assisted by government spies or government agents. Everyone assumed she was assisted by terrorists. Now, if that's not the case, and it turns out that governments are involved and that there's been some double agents involved, as is the evidence points to, then that totally changes the picture. And it brings a lot of weight to her side in relation to, well, hold on, this could have been stopped, she could have been prevented. Why weren't the police alerted beforehand? Why was she allowed to go through security? Why wasn't anyone's parents or local councils or local authorities flagged up? There are protocols in place to prevent all of this happening. If this could happen to a child of 15, it could happen to anyone's child tomorrow. So whereas ultimately the decision was hers, and I don't think she ever denies that the decision was hers. The fact that she has been trafficked in a way does add some weight, if not a lot of weight, to her case to be allowed back in and be tried in the UK. Remember, all she's asking is to come back and be tried in the UK. She isn't saying I'm absolved of any blame in this.
Yeah, of course, there are huge implications for other people in similar situations if she is allowed back into the UK, which the court will be mindful of course, today. But I suppose it's interesting because, Shamima Begum in many ways is the most famous jihadi bride, isn't she? She's sort of the poster girl, if you like, for everything that happened in Syria. Done loads of television interviews. She's never mentioned child trafficking before.
Yeah, because, like I said, the government was covering up, and perhaps she didn't have the evidence at the time. Obviously, something has come to hand, and now there's evidence here, and the court is going to be presented with it. And that's the job of courts. The court's job is to look at all the evidence, regardless of public opinion, regardless of what me and you think or the viewers think. They're going to look at the evidence in the whole and decide what the law says and what the law should say. And so far, the courts have decided that the law should not allow her back in. And this is, like you said, pretty much a last chance saloon for them to have a look and everyone to present their evidence. And if new evidence does come to light, then just like in any case, if you were on trial, if I was on trial, if your viewers are on trial, if evidence comes to light that perhaps the situation isn't as it was, then everyone's got a right to put that forward, evidence forward, and for a judge to decide whether it's, or a committee to decide whether it's, the situation has changed or whether they should maintain their stance.
Of course, absolutely.
A great many people might say that you surrender your right to a British passport the minute you join a terrorist organisation that wants to exterminate and remove Britain from the surface of the planet. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, don't you surrender your passport as soon as you commit any crime? I mean, what about a crime such as rape or murder or child grooming in the UK? It's not very desirable to have those people as neighbours or people here anyway. Aren't they working against the wills of the citizens? That's not the issue here. The issue is, if she's a British citizen, which she is because she holds a British passport, or she did hold a British passport, a British citizenship, then should she be treated like other British citizens, or should she be sent to a country where she's not born in, she hasn't lived in, just because the basis that her parents came from there?
Have to leave it there. Harjap Singh Bangal, human rights lawyer. Absolutely fascinating talking to you this morning. Shamima Begum's case will be heard at the Special Immigration Appeals Court later today. She is challenging a Home Office decision that she is considered a threat to the UK. And, of course, this case being watched very, very closely because it could set a precedent, and 60 British citizens who are held in indefinite detention and 150 terror suspects, all of whom have been stripped of British citizenship, could then return if she is given the right to return to this country. So we'll be watching that very closely indeed.
That's right. Well, after the break, Paul Coyte will be here for more on a World Cup already rocked by multiple controversies.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back at 7:27. Still to come on the programme this morning.
At 7:45, if you're looking for the perfect gift for a loved one on a budget, stay tuned. Kate Hardcastle will be giving us her picks of the best Black Friday deals.
And then at 8:20, How much water should you really be drinking? I think this is a huge con.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to this affectation of walking around with huge bottles of water. Am I right? Am I wrong? Let's ask Dr. Sarah. She'll be in at 8:20 to talk about the power of hydration.
So is it kind of coffee or wine?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Anyway, you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. Well, Paul Coit joins us now to discuss the latest and the biggest sports stories, and there is only one story in town, Paul.
Is that my shoulder? Is that what it is?
It is.
Is that what it is?
It's good to have you back, because you've been in surgery, but you've made it back for the big day.
I did. There was no way I was going to miss the start of the World Cup, especially with the Gianni Infantino speech, the crazy speech that he gave on the Saturday, and he's saying, and that was interesting. Some of the things that he chose. I am Qatari. I feel Arab. I feel gay. I feel migrant worker. I feel shoulder stabilisation operator, which was actually really, which I thought was amazing and a nice gesture. So thank you.
You don't think he was minimalising your experiences?
I think he probably was. I think that's exactly what it is. But it's a huge day, of course.
Yes, and well, can we start at the beginning? Let's go in chronological order. Obviously, England playing later, huge deal. But last night, opening ceremony, A, not being broadcast on the BBC, 2, the opening match.
Yes.
Historic loss for the host nation. And look at the stadium.
Yeah. I know. Is it really a surprise? That's the opening ceremony is always televised, whether we get Olympic Games, whether we get a World Cup, and it's always something we look forward to. If we remember London 2012, which was the most unbelievable opening ceremony we've ever seen to do with any sporting occasion, and it was all a little bit confusing. It was Laib, who was the mascot, who I was trying to work out is...
Like a ghost?
It looks like there was... I'm sure there was a cartoon. It was Casper the Friendly Ghost, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't know how friendly Laib is, but anyway, he floated through, and which apparently means super skilled player. Then there was Morgan Freeman, and there was the kid there that was with him that had no legs, and they're doing the touching the fingers and they're lip syncing. It was all confusing. I don't know, it was either that or I'd had too many of these painkillers that I've been taking, but whether I actually saw
the
that.
Codeine.
It was the code, but apparently that's how it was, and it wasn't broadcast.
So what was worse, that or us having to listen to Gary Lineker giving us a lecture about LGBTQ rights in Qatar? That's what we got on BBC.
You know what? It's a difficult thing to call, and I think that there's people like that. We know about Gary Neville, who's had to justify the fact that he's going over there and he's working over there, and people saying, "Well, you can't be full of double standards." Whereas I think the BBC obviously thought about this very carefully. Look, it almost seemed in a way they were justifying the fact that they were there.
I think so. Yeah.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. It's a World Cup, and we want to see the World Cup. We know all the stuff that's going around it. And I think that I don't know anybody that agrees with the fact that it's in Qatar. Of course, we all disagree. I mean, there's so many reasons that it shouldn't be there. But it is there, and the football truly gets underway today. And of course, we did say yesterday, but Qatar played Ecuador, and...
It was a terrible match.
It was a terrible match, and they're a terrible team.
Yeah, it was awful. Yeah.
They are a terrible team. And it's not a surprise. Then this fact's been thrown around saying, Qatar could be the first nation to not qualify from their group. It's when they're hosting it. It's not a surprise.
Yeah, foregone conclusion.
Only South Africa, probably the only other nation that I can think of going back to the start of the World Cup, who are not a true great footballing nation. So it's not a surprise.
Let's focus then on what is on the front of virtually, in fact, every single front page. England, and we should say Wales also playing their inaugural matches today. But the big news, in terms of the papers anyway, is that Harry Kane is risking a yellow card and possibly being excluded from future matches if he wears this One Love armband in support of LGBTQ+ rights.
This is a very difficult decision now to make. Now, this is this thing which is, I mean, I could say above his pay grade, but of course when it comes to pay and you're a footballer, you're going to be the richest ones. But it's a difficult situation for him to find himself in. Now, we agree when it comes to wearing the One Love armband, no problem with that, and I think it's a gesture, and I can't see where there's a problem with that. But then FIFA get involved. So FIFA are now saying we don't want you to wear that. Well, I'm sorry, but we're going to do what we want. And then we're now hearing, and this isn't definite yet, that he could be yellow carded. So if the captain walks out with this armband, the referee could come out, boom, yellow card. OK, I'll take the yellow card. What happens then in the next game? another yellow card, and then you end up getting suspended for yellow cards.
Yeah, and that's
For the
Harry
Wales
Kane.
match.
Exactly, and you've got Virgil van Dijk has said, and now that he's the Dutch captain, of course, well known for a great Liverpool defender, said, I'm not going to take that chance. So if it then gets to that situation, so are they between a rock and a hard place to make this decision? I don't know. And I think if it then comes to FIFA saying, look, we will take action against your team, then what do you do? I mean, FIFA have also said that, well, look, now they have their own armbands. So they've got different armbands with different phrases and different things written on them. So for the group stage, round one, they have one that now says, football unites the world. Then for the group stage, round two, it says, save the planet. Then you've got protect children, share the meal. So I have a feeling that these have come out after the England ones and after all these other European countries are going to do it, and said, well, in that case, what are you doing? You sneering at our message because we have a great message too, and therefore we're going to yellow card.
Competitive virtue signalling
with
the highest order.
Of the highest order.
Yeah.
But, you know, as far as the football's concerned, we've got our first game against Iran, which is at 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, peak excitement, that's happening at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
And we've got Wales, USA, that's at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
And the whole nation, aside from all of this, I'm sure, going to be getting behind both of those countries.
Well,
so big
absolutely. Wales, maybe not so much as far as England are concerned. No. There are a lot of England fans that say, no, I won't be supporting Wales, and I can categorically tell you I will be supporting
I have to support both. I'm married to a Welshman. It's in the contract.
OK.
I have to support both sides. Paul, we have to leave it there.
OK.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to tomorrow when we'll have some good results.
Lovely to see you. Right, we're going to take a break after that. We're going to be looking inside the papers because, of course, the front of them all about the World Cup. But we've got Dawn Neeson and Chris Akabusi to take us through them.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Here's what's making the front pages this morning.
And you guessed it, there's only really one story in town. In The Sun, they say Harry Kane is vowing to lift nation as the Lions of Arabia kick off their World Cup today versus Iran.
And the Daily Star leads with, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Super Kane, as England striker is hoping to bring back the trophy to England in his dreams.
In The Guardian, after all that cash, a humbling for Qatar as the hosts lose their opening match 2-0 versus Ecuador.
And the Daily Mail leads with the World Cup threat to England's Harry as skipper could be booked for that rainbow armband.
So those are your front pages. Let's take a look inside the papers now. We're joined by the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and the Olympian Chris Akabusi. Warm welcome back to both of you. Dawn, shall we start with Joe Lycett, who seems to be the master of PR, never mind comedy?
Absolutely. It was a very cunning PR stunt, wasn't it?
Best 10K he's ever spent on PR.
Well, exactly, yeah. It's cheaper than hiring a PR agency, isn't it? This is Joe Lycett, the comedian, a gay comedian, who appears to have shredded £10,000 of his own money after David Beckham refused to pull out of his role as Qatar ambassador. Now, David Beckham has been paid 10 million, we think, we're not sure, £10 million to promote the country where the World Cup is currently being played, and is all over the publicity for you flying out there. Yeah, absolutely. So Joe Lycett, who said, right, OK, David Beckham, you have supposedly supported the LGBTQ plus community, and how can you then go to a country where homosexuality is punishable by death? So I am willing to shred £10,000 of my money, which is a grand for every million that you have received, unless you actually give some of your money, or the 10 million, to charity. David Beckham obviously completely ignored this. So yesterday, Joe Lycett actually dressed as some sort of Lou Roll doll. Do you remember the Lou Roll doll is?
Yeah, Lou Roll.
Yeah, the Lou Roll. Work out if it was a Lou Roll or a Big Bird gone.
Yeah. So dressed like that, Pride Big Bird. So took £10,000 supposedly of his money and put it in a wood chipper. Now, I looked at that money and I thought, I'm not sure that is actually real hard cash.
Yeah. Well, it's also a bit grotesque, isn't it?
It's incredibly It's incredibly grotesque. Like, I get the point, and the original video he put out was actually quite funny, especially his jibe about being a West Brom fan. So I get the original thing, and I fully support the message. I don't think Beckham should be there, and I don't think he should be taking that blood money, because that's what it is. However, in the cost of living crisis, to actually destroy £10,000.
That could go to charity.
It just feels profoundly wrong. But I am not convinced that actually was all real money.
You think it was fake?
I think, Martin, there might be money on top, because it just looks so perfect, like Monopoly money.
Remember the KLF when they burned £1 million in the 90s? I used to like the KLF. And at the time, everyone thought, wow, it's art.
Yeah.
Making a huge statement. But this guy's getting a load of stick. I think it's quite cool.
I get his message. I get his point. I just think there's an awful lot of people now thinking, well, £10,000, you know, give that to a charity. Give it to an LGBTQ plus charity. Give it to a woman's charity. Give it to the migrant workers' charities that are, you know, trying to do good out in Qatar itself, rather than just shred it. So, but it's got us all talking about Joe Lycett.
Well, that's the thing. Is it actually talking about rights and Qatar, or are we talking about Joe Lycett? Because I have to say, I've never actually heard of his comedy until he popped up. Maybe it's because I'm a complete news geek, but until he popped up on a political show, and I was like, who is this comedian?
Yeah, I know.
And actually, he just pulls off these stunts, and we're all talking about him.
That's right.
I don't know if it's all more about him than really the morals of all of it. What do you think, Chris?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I hadn't heard of him until the last sort of few months, but he's great publicist, self-publicist, and a branding artist. Now we know more. Now we know him more for some of his antics than his comedy.
Well, let's move on to a story from you, Chris, and another one that's caused huge division. Donald Trump is set to return to Twitter. Tell us about the story.
Yeah, well, so basically, I mean, I think it's probably a better story for Elon Musk. I mean, he's had a bit of a hard time over the last couple of days. He spent his £44 billion to buy Twitter and sack a load of people and under threat of it not working. And so he threatened to make Twitter more collegiate, more democratic. Had a vote in which 51.8% of the people said, we want Trump to return. So there's 50 million people voted, and 51.8% of them said, we want, which is not a ringing endorsement, but it's an endorsement nonetheless. But Trump, who was so prolific on Twitter when he was POTUS, president of the... he's been silent, because obviously he's got his own social media platform. Trump, Truth Social. So, you know, it's a story. I don't know whether Donald Trump... I mean, anyone wants to follow Donald Trump if he's not the president. I mean, I think it was more the office that was important than Trump himself.
Except he mastered the art of Twitter, which at that time people didn't really do threads so much. It was all about trying to get your message into 150 characters, and he would do it all in caps, and he would just do these sound bites, and love or loathe his politics, the guy was a genius on Twitter. And I suspect, yes, he hasn't tweeted yet, and he might not tweet for a while, because he obviously, as you say, he has Truth Social, which is trying to promote... He's not going to be able to resist.
But I think it's a danger on Twitter. The incitement to violence, which is why Twitter banned him when he said he lost the election or it was stolen, is very, very dangerous.
Well, that's debatable. I mean, I think that this is the conversation about free speech and who decides what free speech is. The people at Twitter, Elon Musk clearly decided, were making editorial decisions based around their own political viewpoints. For example, the Taliban still had a Twitter account, whereas Trump didn't. So on what planet is that?
And we've broadcast his claims of electoral fraud on this channel and every other news channel in the newspapers. I mean, those claims are repeated. I agree, they're dangerous and they're harmful to democracy, and he shouldn't be making those claims because they've been completely founded in absolutely no sentiment of truth. However... but our broadcasting was ad hoc, it was after the event, not pre the event. The challenge was that when he was doing it, it was people with a pickaxe and hammers going down Capitol Hill and storming the Capitol. I'm not a politician, obviously, but I can understand why Twitter were told, hold this back. You can't keep on sending people from the countryside of America down to Capitol Hill because it's dangerous.
They would argue that wasn't happening, but anyway, nevertheless, it's a huge talk.
No, it's difficult. It's
got us all talking about Twitter, hasn't it?
Is it another country
exactly.
Should we talk about cancer now, Dawn? This is a story on the front of the Telegraph, a huge deal. The cancer toll is surging in the wake of the pandemic. Now, we know this, but actually it's very easy to become sort of oblivious, what's the word, numb to hearing this repeated, but it's a huge issue.
These are new statistics that have come out, which is why the story's moved on, and fair play to the Telegraph for splashing on this story, I think, and Chris and I were talking about this during the break. We both feel this story is incredibly important. There have been 900 more deaths, additional deaths, extra deaths than we expected this time of year since beginning of September from cancer, and there were 230 extra additional deaths from cancer in 1 week. And this is because, basically, I think we'll all admit now that the National Health Service became the National COVID Service.
Yes.
And I think now it's coming home to roost how much damage it has done. Look, obviously, the whole COVID thing, it needed dealing with, but to shut down the service, and in some incidences, people are still struggling to get appointments if they're worried about cancer symptoms. To shut down the services now, it's basically condemning people to death.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out as well that there were experts like Dr. Carol Sikora,
absolutely,
who all along were saying this will be a problem, it's guaranteed to be a problem, you cannot shut down a point of service and not expect there to be a time bomb. He was absolutely vilified at the time. and has been proven to be completely correct.
He was, Martin, and sort of like in my own family, there has been sort of like 2 diagnoses of cancer very recently, and 3 people that I know have been diagnosed recently of cancer. And it's like suddenly there's this epidemic of diagnosis purely because these people weren't being seen for 2 years beforehand. And in at least one case, that has gone straight to a stage 4 diagnosis, which means it's you know, please God, they've got plenty of time, but it's not, you know, good news. So people are dying because of this. So this is something that the government now really needs to get hold of the NHS and sort out and tackle this problem. And there are 7.1 million people still on waiting lists for appointments.
Well, listen, we wish all of your family
Thank you.
well,
Thank you.
especially whoever's on that stage 4. That's an absolutely terrible situation, but we wish them
And it
all
needn't
the
have
best.
happened, Isabel.
Yeah,
They're not alone
that's
either.
Awful. Time for one last story, Chris, because we do have to move on, but I want to talk about the climate deal that The Guardian's leading on this morning, talking about the world on the brink of catastrophe.
Yeah.
Give us some good news, Chris.
Yeah. Well,
see Martin giggling.
Look, I mean, this is a difficult one for me because, so what it says here is that the final negotiation after 40 hours staying behind is that poor countries are going to be given financial assistance called loss damage by rich governments. That's a positive story.
Arguably, some would agree, yeah.
Not for us.
Well, yeah, but the challenge I've got with this is that ever since I can remember, there's been year after year, decade after decade, you know, chicken licking, the sky's falling down. You know, polar ice caps are melting, ozones are spreading, and we're at the brink of disaster. And this is COP27, so there were 27 meetings to get things sorted.
They've all done well, haven't they, then?
Still haven't done it.
And, you know, on the flip side, we see this just stop oil and all their protests. And rightly or wrongly, what you can see is that these young people, some of them are young people and some of them are more mature people, they really, really believe it.
Yeah, they do.
And they go out on a limb to do it. But then these guys, they fly to their places by planes and you don't really believe they believe it. When I see the politicians have the urgency of just stop oil, then I know we are up the creek without a paddle.
Chris, we're going to have to stop you there.
Sorry.
We've got one second to Chris. I agree with you. Thank you very much.
End of the world can wait.
It was the tip of the iceberg there that we got to on that topic, but we'll come back to it if you forgive the analogy. Yes, we need to move on, but sorry, guys, thank you. More just after 8:30, because we want to talk now about experts at Which who have cautioned shoppers that actually Black Friday deals really aren't what they appear to be.
Yeah, according to research, 98% of Black Friday discounts were available for the same price or even cheaper 6 months after the sales.
So how can we tell actual bargains from the fake ones? Well, I'll tell you how. We can speak to our consumer expert, Kate Hardcastle, who joins us now. And actually, Kate, do you know, I thought of you this morning because we have been talking to each other for years about this, and I vividly remember you saying, there is no such thing as this Black Friday. I mean, honestly, they escalate prices earlier in the year and then they, you know, they're messing with our minds. Are there real deals to be had, Kate?
Good morning, both. Well, nothing is a bargain unless you've got the budget for it, you need it, and it's something you plan to buy, right? Anything else other than that is you falling into the trap of a retailer. But we've got to be honest, if you're aware of the game of retail, that prices will be higher and lower through the year, and often a better prices available outside of the Black Friday period, we know why this has been a successful sale period. And that's because it's before Christmas, a time where many of us are spending 40-50% more of our disposable income than we normally would. Therefore, if you're looking for Christmas gifts, why would you not get a better deal for yourself, even if it's not the best time of the year? So I've got a few quick tricks and tips to have a look out if you cannot resist to shop this week.
Share. We love a few hints and tips.
Okay, so the first one, hopefully there's going to be something on the screen at this point, is try and combine the value of the goods you're looking for. Now, I tend to just look for presents, perhaps some last minute things that I've not already bought throughout the year. But when you come to items like beauty, often there can be something like a gift with purchase, or there can be a combo deal already in place. If you're going to get a discount on something that's already better value, that's a great time to buy. So one of the finds that I made last night when I was was looking through all this was Liberty, the department store, quite fancy, as you know, but they have the Dermalogica Rescue Kit. For £35, you're getting much more value within that pack anyway, and then they've got the discount on it. Now, if you also buy a few of these, maybe you're buying 2 or 3 presents, you then get a further gift. And if you collect the loyalty points, which you can convert to cash later, you're going to get some money back later on in the year. For me, if I'm buying that anyway, I've got 4 wins there, Isabel, and I'm feeling quite comfortable with that.
OK, I'm feeling quite comfortable with that. That works for me. Any other tips then?
Yeah, very much so. I think it's, again, looking for items that are great, stocking fillers and presents, or maybe even splitting something, is buying a multi-pack and dividing it down. One of the great things is that I think could save a loved one hundreds of pounds, having gone through the experience, is the Apple AirTag. Apple AirTags are great to slot into your luggage, and if you suffer, as I did, for weeks and weeks without your luggage, trying to work out where it's gone, these are a really great gift, particularly for those travel lovers in your life. Now, you can buy a 4-pack of these. You can buy them from Amazon. They're now £99. They were £120. That was already discounted. And you've got 4 gifts there ready to go, much less, and a really good present for people. If we're looking for the kids as well, there's a couple of things I'd recommend. I love this next device. It's called the Amazon Dot. You can buy it at Amazon, many other retailers. The cheapest I've found is at Argos, though. Now, what this can do, Isabel, I know you're weary, Martin, I'm not sure if you've got children or not, but this allows you to not only get your children interacting with stories and on the central Amazon Alexa system if you've got it in the home, but it is an intercom, and that is how I use it pretty much every day. You can radio through to the room and say, right, kids, come on downstairs. I need you to see for the homework, need to see you for your tea, need to see you for the chores. So £24.99 is the cheapest dot I found. And something traditional and classic like Lego. This one at very.co.uk is a Harry Potter Lego set. Was £83.99, now £45. And I think that's a significant saving, the Harry Potter Lego there at £45.
Wow, that's a really big discount there. I have to say, Lego is so expensive.
It is priced, but the intercom on the Echo is superb. That's how I get my kids to make me a cup of tea in the morning. So I would recommend that to anyone.
Oh, I don't use it for that. I'm going to take that tip myself. Thank you for a tip back this morning.
Yeah, it's a two-way street, this. Kate Howcastle, thank you so much for all of your hints and tips there. So there are some deals to be had. But we were saying earlier, it doesn't feel like Black Friday anymore. It doesn't even feel like Black Week. It's like Black Month. We're sort of being bombarded by all these savings, and it's a bit overwhelming sometimes, but you just have to sift through them, as Kate said. Some absolutely brilliant tips there. Now, we'll have more on the start, of course, of the World Cup for England and Wales today. It's the biggest story in town, really, isn't it? Lots of excitement building.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's after your forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet and windy in the southwest, cold with patchy fog in the northeast. Let's take a look at the details. So a wet and gloomy start to the week across southwest England as a band of heavy rain makes its way northeastwards this morning. Windy there with a risk of gales for coastal areas. It's initially going to be dry for southeast England and London, though rain will move in from the southwest through this morning with some heavy bursts at times. Wet and windy for South Wales as heavy rain pushes across the country, drier for longer in the north and east. After a chilly start to the new week, with some clear spells across the Midlands, rain will quickly spread in from the southwest with some heavy bursts at times, becoming increasingly breezy. A frosty start to Monday across northeast England with patches of fog or freezing fog in places. This may take some time to clear this morning, dry but cloudy as the fog lifts. It'll be a cold start, especially in eastern parts of Scotland, with a frost and fog patches. That fog slowly lifting this morning with a band of cloud and showers affecting eastern coasts. A wet morning across Northern Ireland with bursts of heavy rain that could cause travel disruption in some places, and a windy morning too, with a risk of gales for coastal areas. So rain will continue across southern and central England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and it will be drier further north with showers for eastern areas. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Excitement builds as the Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign, playing their opening match against Iran later today.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Monday the 21st of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
England and Wales both launched their World Cup campaigns today with the Three Lions facing off against Iran at 1 p.m. It comes amid continued controversy, with England captain Harry Kane potentially facing an instant yellow card if he wears his rainbow armband during the match.
Come on, England. Tory MPs have reacted with anger to claims that Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are considering a Swiss-style arrangement with the European Union. In an attempt to quell rebels, Number 10 and Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick have insisted that the option is off the table.
I don't know where that story came from, but it's completely untrue. We have no intention of pursuing that kind of arrangement.
The Immigration Minister speaking to us exclusively earlier on this morning. And migrant workers should be used to fix the UK's labour shortages, according to the CBI. Rishi Sunak will also be giving a speech to business leaders a little bit later on as the country is preparing for tougher tax rises and spending cuts.
So get in touch the usual way via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Well, finally, the Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign today, facing Iran in their opening game at 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, where will you be? Let us know where you'll be watching. And also, you'll be at the pub.
I will.
And I think there are schools up and down the country questioning quite how they get through their timetabling this afternoon. You know, secondary schools and primary schools even.
And workplaces,
peak
building
excitement.
sites,
Yeah, even newsrooms. So, look, of course, all of this comes amid controversy around England captain Harry Kane, who could face an instant yellow card for wearing the One Love armband in support of LGBTQ+ rights.
Yeah, would it be worth it? OK, Wales also play their first game this evening at 7 o'clock, facing off against the USA.
Well, yesterday's opener ended with Qatar losing 2-0 to Ecuador, and that made them the first World Cup hosts to lose their opening match in the tournament's 92-year history. Let's get reaction to all of that from Paul Hawkins, who joins us this morning from Qatar. So, look, we weren't able to watch the opening ceremony here in the UK because the BBC decided to use that to talk about the human rights issues in all of this. There's been a lot of discussion, hasn't there, Paul? Obviously, lots of controversy, but this is extending not just from the Gary Lineker of the world, but indeed the players, and question marks about whether Harry Kane might get in trouble for it.
And I've just been speaking to some England fans about that, Isabel. Listen, the England-Iran fixture, there's definitely a political undercurrent there because you've got the Iranian team. We don't know how they're going to behave given what's happening in their country. I've been talking to Iranian fans this morning. The players may not celebrate goals, they may not sing the Iranian national anthem, and we'll hear from their captain in just a moment. But then on the other side, you've got this issue of whether Harry Kane should wear the One Love armband, whether he should take that yellow card, or does he forego wearing the armband, in which case he could be open to accusations of hypocrisy. So it's a difficult one, and the England fans I spoke to earlier were divided on that. But the big story today really is the Welsh team playing in their first World Cup since 1958. So let's find out how some of the fans are feeling. Guys, thanks for speaking to us. What's your name?
Harry.
Harry?
Carwyn.
Harry and Carwyn. Good to talk to you. First of all, how are you feeling? Can you believe you're at a World Cup?
Feel great, yeah. It's nice about the house. No, a little bit apprehensive. Tonight's the big one. If we can get 3 points this evening, then I think we go through. There's not much margin for error, is there?
No, and I mean, it does feel like once in a lifetime because really we've only ever been nearly men. We've had a couple of misses in playoffs recently. So to actually qualify for a World Cup, it is special. Yeah, 64 years is once in a lifetime for many Welsh people. And really, we've only got the one superstar. So to qualify with our squad, I think, is a fantastic achievement because they're not world beaters as individuals, but as a team, they really play well.
Yeah, hence the song, which is literally about togetherness. Yeah. I mean, how are you feeling in full voice for that?
Absolutely, yeah. A couple of lagers.
A couple of lagers. You got 50 quid to spare of you.
Yeah, a pint. Yeah.
Just out of interest, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Harry Kane wearing the One Love armband and then getting a yellow card from FIFA for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Gareth Bale also going to wear the One Love armband?
He's supposed to be, yeah.
He's supposed to be. So there's a similar dilemma with that, is there? And with the Welsh fans, do you think he should wear it and take a yellow?
I couldn't care either way.
I mean, personally, I think it sends a message because there's a lot of questions as to why was the World Cup in Qatar in the first place. Allegations of corruption, or I think was proven to be corruption in the end.
They would deny that, we should say.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Sorry, yeah, of course.
But if he wears that armband and then he gets a yellow card, wears it in the next game, gets a yellow card, he'll miss the game against England. Is that worth it?
No.
No. Absolutely
not. No, we can't afford to be without our best player. Certainly not, no.
Right. So I guess I
contradicted myself because, as I said, it is a strong message. But then to be penalised in ultimately the biggest games of your career, and I think it's no secret that this tournament's going to be a swan song for Gareth Bale. I certainly can't see him continuing his international career any longer. So to miss any of these games is going to be devastating for players and fans, really.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And just how you find the Qatar experience. I don't know whether you're, as some fans have done, have you come from Dubai today?
Yeah, from Dubai,
yeah. Got about 7 o'clock this morning, was it?
7 o'clock this morning. Yeah. Do you know what? It is a beautiful city. You know, there seems to be a lot going on. The souk was quite a nice experience. We had lovely food, and honestly, the food was quite reasonably priced, which was surprising as well. Yeah. So it's been nice.
But you've got a long time till 10 o'clock this evening. What is it now? It's just gone 11 here. That's almost, 10 hours? What are you going to do?
There's a fan party that's been arranged for Wales fans in a hotel, and apparently we've sold over 1,000 tickets to it. It's just a ticketed event, so I think the atmosphere there should be really good.
Yeah. And alcohol will be involved, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we had to pre-book a package. I won't tell you how much it cost.
How much did it cost?
5 pints and a curry, 79 quid. And that was the cheap option.
Almost too cheap.
Yeah. It was, if you wanted a premium lager, it was £110 for 5 pints and a curry.
Right, wow.
Which is obscene.
Okay. But it is the World Cup, you know, and like you said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, so you just got paid.
Yeah, and I'm not saying English fans take it for granted, but you are expected to qualify every tournament. But for us, like I say, you know, realistically, with some of the players that are coming up to retirement in the next 4 years, I didn't want to miss out personally.
It might not happen again
it's not a given.
10, 20, 30 years.
I mean, if it's another 64 years, we certainly won't be here this year.
Yeah. Just quickly, score prediction against the USA later, and then score prediction when you play England.
2-0 against the USA. Gareth Bale to score. I would like to think we can scrape a draw with England.
Yeah.
1-0 to both.
1-0 to... Right, okay, interesting. I do think Wales might do it, you know, just out of interest. Guys, thanks for speaking to us so much.
Pleasure.
So yeah, listen, there is this political dimension to the England-Iran fixture, and it's touching on the Wales fans as well. They were talking about Gareth Bale wearing this One Love armband, in which case he'll get a yellow card for this game, yellow card for the next game, could miss the third game. And for the Iranians, the undercurrent there is, how are the Iranian players going to behave? Will they celebrate their goals? Will they sing the national anthem? The Iranian captain was talking about this in a press conference yesterday, and remember, the Iranian players have to be very careful about what they say when they talk about what's happening in their own country, but he did have this to say.
We have to accept that the situation in our country is not good, and that our people are not happy. They are discontented. We are here, but it does not mean that we should not be their voice, or that we should not respect them. Whatever we have is theirs. We are here to work hard and to fight. We have to perform the best we can and score goals, and dedicate those goals to the people of Iran who are feeling hurt. I hope the situation will be as the people wish for it to be, and that they will be happy.
There you go, so that's the Iranian captain speaking earlier, or yesterday I should say, in that press conference. So it's going to be fascinating to see England and Iran. The football almost feels like it's taking a little bit of a backseat, but hopefully there will be goals. Hopefully it'll be exciting. Hopefully it'll be an England win, and hopefully later it'll be a Wales win.
I was wondering what the kind of mood is amongst the Iranian fans, because I think it'd be a really meaningful thing if the players did do some sort of protest on the pitch. You know, we've heard about them doing the hair snip thing, because don't forget there are still thousands of political prisoners in Iran. This is a serious situation. Actually, I think it's much more politically pertinent than things like, you know, armbands or taking the knee. This is a real critical political situation that's happening right now, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's going to be interesting. You've got the England team. Do they stick to their principles and stand up for LGBTQ+ rights? And then on the other side, you've got the Iranian national team. Do they stand up for women's rights? And that is why Iranian domestic football has been played behind closed doors, because the government is worried about large crowds congregating and that fomenting more protests. And when the players themselves have been scoring, they haven't been celebrating their goals. So what do you do when you're on the world stage? How do you demonstrate that? When they have scored their goals, they've either pointed to the sky or snipped their hair in solidarity with women in the country. So how will they celebrate when they score those goals? Will they sing the national anthem? Obviously, if they do win, it would be an incredible moment politically, domestically, and in sporting terms. How they celebrate that, though, is because they don't want to be seen to be supporting the Iranian government, but they are obviously very proud of their own country. So, you know, there's all these interesting subplots to the game. And then, of course, let's not forget, there is the football.
Yeah, of course, that small matter. Paul, really interesting. As always, we'll see you a little bit later on. I should say we've got Tulip Siddiq, Labour MP, coming on a little bit later on to talk to us. She, of course, the MP who is Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe's in her constituency. We've spoken to her about Nazanin's captivity in Iran a lot, but it'd be interesting to hear her views on all of this. And we've been hearing your views at home on the World Cup. Thank you so much for getting in touch. Ian says, if they feel that strongly about Qatar, and I think this is in reference to the England team, they should not have made themselves available to play.
Yeah, I think Patsy sums up the mood of a lot of people now. We love football and we really enjoy the World Cups, but it's just getting all too political now. Let's just get on with the game.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, 2018, the World Cup was in Russia. We didn't have anything like this kind of controversy, and yet they'd invaded Crimea then, another sovereign country, lots of human rights abuses in that country, which we knew about then. Colin says he wholeheartedly disagrees with Kane's decision to wear the rainbow band. Armbands of any political nature should not be worn. Keep all politics out of sporting events.
I think it's a bit too late for that. That's the problem, isn't it?
But where do we go then, as you say? Because it becomes everything now. We've got the Iran match, then we should the England team really be concerned about women's rights as well, not just Qatari rights? At what point do you stop?
And actually, the Iranian protest, I think, would be a marvellous thing. And the captain, I thought, there was really brave to speak out.
It's very brave.
It's dangerous to say those kind of things.
He's got a mother, I'm sure, and a sister, and he'll be concerned about what that means for them. Situation incredibly febrile in Iran. Keep your thoughts coming in for us throughout the course of the morning. We'd love to hear from you.
OK, well, Eurosceptic Tory MPs have reacted with anger to claims that the government could pursue a Swiss-style deal with the European Union.
Well, we should stress Number 10 has categorically denied that the idea is even on the table. But last night, Nadine Dorries warned Rishi Sunak not to pursue anything that could jeopardise the UK's sovereignty, adding that voters needed to know that Brexit is safe.
Well, earlier on the programme, we spoke to Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, who said there was no truth to the story. And here's a reminder of what he said to us exclusively earlier.
I don't know where that story came from, but it's completely untrue. We have no intention of pursuing that kind of arrangement. There are respectable arguments either way, but we have a settled position now as a country, and we reached an agreement with the European Union in 2019 and 2020, and we're moving forward on that basis. Of course, there are opportunities now to improve our trading relationship, as there are to improve our security and our immigration relationship with the European Union. But we're not interested in reopening the fundamental position that we reached with the EU a few years ago.
Well, that was the Immigration Minister a little bit earlier on. Joining us now to analyse all of that is Harry Phibbs, local government editor for Conservative Home. Good to see you, Harry.
Morning.
Do you believe Robert Jenrick there? Do you think it is off the table? Because what does Jeremy Hunt mean then, if that is true, when he says he wants to remove the major barriers to trade with the EU?
Well, I don't think the Sunday Times would have made the story up. So there's obviously somebody whether Jeremy Hunt or somebody in his camp who have put it forward. But I don't think it'll happen. And the point that people sometimes don't grasp about free trade is that a basic point is there's a mutual benefit to it. You know, if you get a buyer or a seller and they agree a price and they have a trade, this whole idea that you know, who's won the deal, someone's got a better deal than someone else. It's a mutual benefit, and that's why it would make sense for the European Union to be less vexatious about all the customs control, which I think is politically motivated to punish us over Brexit, but it doesn't make economic sense for them or us. So I think we should have freer trade with the EU, as with all countries around the world. It doesn't mean that we should be giving them money. It doesn't mean that they should be preventing us from controlling our borders. It doesn't mean that they should be telling us what laws to operate under, any more than it does with Canada or any of these other trade deals. I think that's the misunderstanding. Free trade is a mutual benefit, and we don't need to boss each other around.
Yeah, and Harry, some of the detail about loosening of migration that came out in that leak to the Sunday Times, plus now the CBIS of today, this continued reliance on cheap migrant labour to do the jobs in Britain. That was a huge point during the Brexit referendum, particularly in the Red Wall, where the working classes were saying they were seeing their wages suppressed. It's really a relaxation of immigration, the sort of thing that's going to land well with the Conservative voters in the Red Wall again now.
No, but I think that even more important than the amount of immigration is a sense of it not being under control. And that, of course, we've got that with the Channel crossings. And I think actually, if people felt that we had control over who was coming in, how long they were here for, what were the reasons for having people with particular skills, then I think people would be much more positive about immigration. But the idea of complete free movement with the European Union, with complete lack of any control at all, no, absolutely that was a source of dismay, and absolutely any suggestion of going back to that would be regarded as a betrayal.
Yeah, and look, we should stress again, the government very much denying that this is an option. I think you're absolutely right. It's very, very unlikely any sort of Swiss-style deal would be brought in. But I'm interested to get your thoughts on this CBI conference. Prime Minister heading up there to give a keynote speech today. They've come out saying that labour shortages are holding Britain back, and Martin was touching on it there. We need to increase migration to tackle what they call a dormant economic decade. How does the government address that problem then?
Well, one of the things that's been discussed is as a hangover from the pandemic and the lockdown, are the number of people who aren't sort of completely unemployed, but are still on out of work benefits of some kind or another, and the taper for universal credit makes very little incentive for people to take on more hours, and there's little support for people who might be on sickness benefit would still be keen to work and with a bit of help and encouragement could be working. So I think the focus should try to be on getting British people back to work, and British people with more training, and then guess what? There wouldn't be the labour shortages that. Absolutely true. I'm sure that the CBI writers saying that businesses are finding problems with labour shortage, but I think that would be a better way of tackling it.
But at Jeremy Hunt's budget, there was an increase in benefits payments. There was a slamming down on middle earners, on the middle classes. So is the Tory government sending out the right messages about getting people to work, to incentivise work? So paying people to not work in Britain and then importing labour surely is wrong-headed.
We need to have incentives for all across the income scale. We need to do something about benefit reform so that people aren't trapped on benefits. But also, absolutely, we need to have incentives for rich people, successful people, to be staying in this country. We want them to be working hard and paying more tax and taking on us. And if we pile on tax so high on businesses and on the wealthy, it ends up being counterproductive. You put up the tax rates, but then because of the lack of incentive, the revenue goes down. And I think we're already so highly taxed that it's a really serious mistake that Jeremy Hunt made with the budget last week to put tax even higher. I mean, there's been talk about spending cuts, but if you look at the facts, spending is going up and up and up each year, not just in cash terms, but allowing for inflation in real terms, and a bigger chunk of the nation's income is being taken by the state, and we're sort of groaning under the weight of this, and it's really a socialist policy that we've had from a supposedly conservative government.
Well, there we go. Harry Phibbs, always interesting to get your take, local government editor from Conservative Home. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's bring you up to date with all the rest of today's top stories now.
Shamima Begum, who left the UK at the age of 15 to join so-called Islamic State, is due to have her case heard again today at the appeal court. It comes after the Supreme Court ruled she was not allowed to come to the UK to fight her citizenship case against the Home Office. She's denied any involvement in terror activities.
And a 31-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of two young children in a fire in Nottingham. Fire and rescue were called to a flat in Fair Isle Close in Clifton in the early hours of yesterday morning. The children, aged 1 and 3, were treated at the scene for smoke inhalation but later died in hospital.
A yellow wind warning's in place for southwest England and South Wales until this evening. Huge gusts of wind are expected for large parts of the UK. Forecasters are also warning of freezing conditions, with temperatures expected to drop to as low as -4 degrees in parts of the country this morning. Say, bad weather on the way, but those pictures, absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
there's nothing more beautiful than seeing a loch or up in the mountains and the water being whipped up by the wind.
The calm before the storm is going to kick off.
Gorgeous, gorgeous pictures. Anyway, keeping a nautical theme, demonstrations are taking place in London this morning in protest of an EU vote on UK fishing quotas.
And this is one close to my heart. Activists from Ocean Rebellion will express their opposition to the vote by standing in a pool of blood whilst holding briefcases and dead fish.
Well, here to tell us more is GB News political reporter Catherine Forster. I'm hoping you found a spot not too close to bloody fish heads this morning.
Yes, you'll be able to see in the background in a moment. So we're here outside the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, where climate activist group Ocean Rebellion are staging a protest. Now, they're affiliated to Extinction Rebellion, but they don't follow the same methods. They don't break the laws, they don't cause obstructions. They basically use art to get people talking about what's going on in our oceans and the threat to them. The reason, as you said, that we're here today specifically is because at noon there will be a vote in the EU on UK fishing quotas for next year. So I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Higgs, who is spokesman for Ocean Rebellion. Rob, can you tell us a bit about why you're here today?
We're here because the oceans are dying, and as the oceans die, we die. We cannot live without the oceans. Now, to put that in context, what we've got currently, since 1950, we've lost 90% of the large fish in the oceans. This is tuna, swordfish, those sorts of fish. And since 1970, we have lost 50%, half of all sea life gone, dead, and this trajectory, this plummeting trajectory, is continuing and accelerating as we still continue to clear out the oceans. Now, our issue with government is twofold. A, that they still see them as fish stocks. We talk about fish stocks. We don't talk about bird stocks or elephant and zebra stocks. We view the fish as our commodity to take from. Now, and on top of that, then we have the issue where we're emptying the oceans, and we've lost any control of our own fish stocks to even regulate that. Currently, the EU is voting today on the UK's quota because we left the EU and take back control. Did not work. They decide how much fish we can take, and they already take that on a woefully dangerous level. Every single fish stock is in decline. They're still saying they're not. The terminology they use is fully fished. It's not quite fully fished, which kind of says it all. Now, this is basically. The Dutch boat, 23% of the UK quota currently goes to a Dutch-owned boat. It's flagged to the UK, but it's Dutch-owned fish that's landed and taken to Europe. This is the scale of the problem where we've lost any control over it, and the control that is being issued by people that want to empty the sea further.
That's Rob Higgs for Ocean Rebellion. So as you heard, of the UK quota that we have, not even all that fish by any means is ultimately coming back to Britain. There'll be a further protest later at a different location in London, but as you can see, quite dramatic scenes here this morning.
All right, Catherine, thank you. Well, look, we'll cross back to you throughout the course of the day here on GB News, and it's bound to be a lively protest today.
It is, and it's one that I really agree with. I know that all the vegans with the milk and just stop all, we roll our eyes, here we go, another protest. This is a really serious one, because one of the benefits of leaving the EU was meant to be to take back control of our fishing waters. That didn't happen. The British fishing industry was completely betrayed by Boris Johnson's Brexit deal, and those communities are having their hearts ripped out. And part of the issue that we always said was that the methods of fishing that the European Union are using, often like super trawlers, they're raking ecosystems dry of life and plundering our waters. And the quotas are going up and up and up. And I always believe that environmentalists should have been pro-Brexit. It would have stopped this kind of plundering of our resources. There's a serious deal behind this, and I wish them the very best of it.
Yeah, it's interesting how your support for Extinction Rebellion now kicks in when it relates to Brexit, of course, being an ardent Brexit campaign.
Well, there's always a way to next bit about Brexit as well.
All right, well, listen, let us know your thoughts on all of those topics, not least that protest taking place outside DEFRA today. After that, we'll be continuing this water theme. We'll be talking to Dr. Sarah about whether or not we really should be drinking these huge vats that you see people walking around of water. I'm not convinced. Are you? Let us know your thoughts. We'll discuss it after this quick break. That's not water.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 8:29. Still to come on today's programme. At 10 to 9, we'll be speaking to a father who's written a World Cup Christmas song whilst singing to his newborn daughter, singing her to sleep. A lullaby, if you will.
It's really lovely, actually. I'll check it out here. At 9:15, Andrew Pearce will be here giving us his take on all the day's big news stories.
And as always, please send your thoughts in. They're coming in thick and fast, and we'll try and reflect as many of those as we can throughout the course of the programme.
Experts from the European Food Safety Authority recommend women should be drinking 2 litres of fluids daily, whilst it's 2.5 litres for men.
It's a full-time job. Yeah. Well, this weekend, Adrian Charles discovered that for his age and his weight, he's actually expected to consume 4 litres of water a day. But could that much water actually be bad for us? As sales of bottled water in the US surpass sales of fizzy drinks, we're asking how much is enough? Let's talk to Dr. Sarah Kaya about all of this. 4 litres of water. He'll be on the loo all day.
I'm sure he will be. I mean, it's really varied, the advice out there. The NHS Eat Well guide say between 6 and 8 glasses of water a day. So it very much varies. And I think that's because we really don't have much scientific evidence to suggest exactly how much we should be drinking. And that's because things like climate can affect it. Your age, your height, your weight, how much physical activity you do, medication that you're on, your overall health. All of these things factor in. So I think, telling one person you have to drink 4 litres of water a day because you're this age is probably not the most sensible thing to do.
Does tea count? Because tea is almost entirely water.
But it's a diuretic, isn't it?
Well, yeah, this is where it all gets quite confusing because the advice is 6 to 8 glasses of fluid a day, I should say. Yeah. So that can include tea, milk, coffee.
Wine? Asking for a friend.
I mean, well, wine is a fluid. Eventually it becomes a diuretic and you end up passing more urine than you want after, a certain amount of it. And the same with the coffee and the tea, it can be a diuretic. But, the first cup of tea is probably not going to make you pass significant amounts of water. So I think if you can, stick to water because it's healthier for you, it's cheaper for you, but other fluids do count. And actually you can get 20% of our fluids from our food.
Cucumber. I love a cucumber. I definitely think I get a bit of my water source from there. Yeah. Look, there's a chap called Tim Spector. If people don't know him, he's done lots of research on how different people's bodies respond to food and to fluid. And he basically says there's no one-size-fits-all approach, and certainly some people need lots of water and some people don't. Do you agree with his findings, or what's your view on all of that?
Well, exactly that. So I think there are so many different factors that determine how much water you need to have. So I agree, one size does not fit all. There is not a specific equation that I can give you to say this is how much you need to be drinking. I think you should be looking for signs of dehydration in yourself, and when you notice that, definitely start drinking more. So if you're feeling thirsty, if your urine's becoming more dark in colour, if you're feeling more lethargic, dizzy, dry mouth, dry tongue, those are all signs.
OK, and what would your advice be if people are drinking these huge vats of water? Are there any dangers actually washing away minerals or goodness from your body?
Yeah, so you can overdrink. For most people, that will just mean that they end up peeing out more, as long as they've got healthy kidneys. But you can overload your kidneys, and at some point they might not be able to actually excrete as much. And in those people, it can dilute your blood, and that means you can get lower sodium levels, and that can lead to other more serious conditions, Yeah,
so I think for men of a certain age, drinking big quantities is an issue because once you break the seal, it's difficult to stop.
Well, there are other side effects of having to pass urine a lot, especially overnight. It can therefore affect your sleep, all of these kind of things. So there are some negatives in terms of lifestyle as well. But in general, drink when you're thirsty, and try and stick to that 6 to 8. But I don't think it's prescriptive.
And just quickly, you talked about the damage that can be done to kidneys from over drinking water. Can you do long-term damage to your kidneys if you don't drink enough water?
There are problems with not drinking enough. So it can affect your digestion, constipation. It can affect heart and circulation, your blood pressure, your brain performance. We know that 1% drop in your body fluid levels can actually affect your mental performance, headaches, fatigue. So there are problems with
mental performance. Right, well, that's got me on board. I'll be drinking at least 1 pint of water a day. I'll try, Doctor. Dr. Sarah Kite, thank you very much indeed. Always lovely to see you.
Thank you. Sorry to lower the tone, but old men's lives matter too.
Of course. No, it's absolutely important.
OK, so after the break, we'll be going through the papers with Chris Akabusi and Dawn Neeson.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Welcome back. It's 8:38. You're watching Breakfast on GB News. Today I'm joined by Martin Daubney, and we've got lots more coming your way, including the papers. Let's take a look at those front pages, how they're shaping up this morning.
And the Sun leads with the Lions of Arabia as Captain Harry Kane vows to lift the nation when England take on Iran at 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Here's the Mirror. It's all about hope and glory as England take the knee and wear pride armbands.
The Daily Star asks, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Super Kane, as the England striker hopes to bring back the trophy to England.
And the Mail also covers the World Cup, as well as a shock claim the UK could seek closer ties with the EU, with the headline, "Don't betray us on Brexit."
And we have our own two superstars in the studio now, doing the papers, Chris Ascobusi and Dawn Neeson. Come on, take a compliment when it comes your way.
Thank you.
Chris is taking it.
Yeah,
who wants to do
Bring it on, baby.
I couldn't get anyone else, Chris, let's be honest.
Oh, no.
So, Dawn, let's start with you.
Shall we?
A little bit of I'm one of the chaps, honestly, aren't I, type story.
Yeah,
Rishi Sunak has started his World Cup wall chart. What a bloke.
There is only one story in town. It's the World Cup, and we've discussed the rights and the wrongs of where it's being played there already at length. So I thought I'd drill down into some of the more fun stuff.
Yeah.
And this is, as you say, this is Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, just in case you've forgotten, although check, it might have changed, has had himself filmed filling in his World Cup of football chart. And obviously, I do one of these religiously.
Yeah.
Every World Cup, every European Championship. And for the first time, I haven't.
What? Why?
I'm not going, because I disagree with the whole thing.
Yeah.
We've
I'm
done
not
a
doing
sweepstake in the office.
Who did you get?
I got Croatia.
Bad luck.
Is that bad?
Yeah. I got France.
That's what we're in with the shout. I'd have probably got Iran. a country that I loathe for women's rights issues even more than Qatar. But, yeah, Rishi is dutifully getting down with the working-class football fan and filling in his wall chart. And obviously he's been filmed doing that, just in case you missed it. And the other story worth mentioning is the WAGs, that's the wives and girlfriends, flying out with their very, very many bags. Now, in theory, England could be coming home in just a few days' time,
Excuse me, wash your mouth out.
Sorry, but realistically... penalties, Germany, etc. But it could be. But there's one here. Which one even is Jack Grealish's girlfriend, Sasha Atwood? She's got 1, 2, 3, 4 huge suitcases.
It's just makeup.
Isabel.
Sorry.
But I've been told they can't wear mini dresses. So maybe she's got, like, gigantic tunics in there or something.
Do you reckon?
No, I don't.
No. And she's flying out in tracksuit bottoms, which you could roll up and put in a rucksack in any case, couldn't you? So. But yeah, they are flying on this multi-million, probably billion-pound yacht that's moored, where they have staterooms and champagne, you know, flowing, even though no one else is allowed to drink out there, obviously.
Indeed.
Which is a bit awkward for the sponsors, Budweiser.
Yeah, they lost all the dosh, didn't they? The day before, that got sprung upon them.
Yeah, what do you make of Rishi Sunak getting down with the people?
Get on with the job, mate.
Yeah.
Get on with the job, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, shall we talk then, The Guardian's take on this? They're talking about, this is at page 16 inside The Guardian, Qataris welcome the world with pride and rage.
Yeah, exactly. So the pride is, there's Qatar is 350,000 people, and they've got the whole world's media there. And it's a pride for them to be able to show people into their front room. And like any guest, they would hope that the people would come and respect their rules, respect their way of life. But what they found out is that the world's descended upon them and lambasted them for living a more conservative way of life than them. And they were actually saying, you know, we're a small country, we are doing our best, and we were so excited about getting the World Cup, and all we've got is vilification. He says that, for example, women's rights are developing. Yes, we know that we don't live like you do, but if you look into our workforce, there are more and more women now in management positions in the workforce, and more women who are graduating from university. Not saying that they're perfect, but they're saying we are moving, we are progressing. They're saying, for example, that we've got our children who are going to be going to these sports events. And what we are worried about is that we lose our culture. We know that you guys like to drink. We know that you guys are more liberal in your sexual proclivities. What we just don't want is for our children to have that rammed in their faces. Because after the games, you go, we've still got a society. So when I read this, I'm thinking the other side is a young country, and they're saying, you know, one of the things, for example, we are a small independent state. We've got that with you coming, and we don't want to be subsumed into this wider Saudi Arabia. So, you know, I just understand what they're saying is that the Western world will come down there, and it's like a guest into your house. Someone comes into your house and go, I don't like your wallpaper. What are you doing sitting there? Hey, change that. And they're saying, have a little bit more decorum, is basically, have a little bit more decorum. We're not westernised, we are a small growing population, and things are changing. Look, I'm not putting it all right, but I'm just saying there is another side of the story.
Yeah, there is, but we mustn't forget, I mean, did you see the crowds yesterday? Well, they were half empty, the stadium, but there were practically no women in those stands.
Spotted that, yeah,
there were
absolutely.
no women there because they're not allowed out without a male escort, and you can still be flogged if you committed adultery. So they've got a long way to go.
Another one here says we have a gay community. We have a gay community. It's just that
they
there's
just keep them very quiet.
Yeah, or imprisoned.
Or in prison.
Well, no, come on. I mean, they've got a gay community, and people will practice their way of life. It's just that they won't do it in public. People will drink, but just won't do it in public.
There's a difference, isn't there, between being tolerant of someone else's culture and accepting their values are different from your own. But there's also, you know, we have every right to say, hang on a minute, it's not OK to torture, it is not OK to kill people
yes, of course.
because they've fallen in love with someone.
Didn't one of them actually describe being gay as an aberration of the brain or something or other, a brain malfunction. I mean, that's very thinking.
And of course that's banging out of order, and no one's going to try and justify that. But just like you'd say, I've heard it here before, when people come into the United Kingdom and they criticise our way of life, you say, well, go back to your own country.
I'm all for tolerance. I agree with what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but obviously there is a line over which that gets crossed.
I'm feeling a bit peckish here. I see Greg's on the paper.
Oh, God, I thought sandwich. What are you talking about?
You just gave me a taste for it.
All right, OK.
So let's go on to the Greg's. Tell us about this, Dawn.
OK, first of all, I've got a confession to make. Yeah. I've never eaten a Greg's in my entire life.
Get out.
No, I'm sorry.
If I have to think about that.
What?
I really
Surely you have.
My daughter has, not me. She
there we go.
I'm the only
just
Greg.
you then.
Listen, I've been to Greg's many times with my husband, but it's just not my thing.
No. That's not me.
Greasy.
Any case, this is the pasty wars flared up again in Cornwall after Greg said it would open a new bakery on Truro High Street within weeks. Now, they've already tried this, but they were closed down because, obviously, lack of custom. The Cornish people going, no, we make pasties better than you're ever going to do it, so go away. But they're opening a new one now, and this new one is Truro's High Street, and it's just a stone's throw away from Warren's Bakery, which is the oldest pastry shop in the world, evidently, possibly. You've probably been there.
I have that. They're very, very territorial about Cornish pasta. It's a bit like Bordeaux or Champagne or Roquefort. Has to be Cornish. I do kind of get this, actually. Yeah. I do get it. I mean, I love Greg's, as you can tell. But I also believe in supporting the local businesses.
Didn't Pizza Hut have a disaster in Rome recently? Had to close. So it happens everywhere. You know, where you've got your specialism, you can have these people trying to imitate, but you're never going to beat the original.
In any case, it's pasty wars in Cornwall, so it's all kicking off in Cornwall as well as in Qatar. Qatar. How do you actually even pronounce that? I've heard it pronounced so many ways.
I bet it Qatar.
Qatar.
Potato, whichever you go for. Chris, can we talk? I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. Do we have time for another story? I heard something in my ear then. Very quickly, can we talk about male teachers yet? My son's got a primary school teacher who's a chap at the moment, and I think it's so healthy for a young boy to have a male
100%. And it says that women are great, but men are not dispensable. That often for young boys growing up, they only see their mum's lover, or they see fighting in the streets, and they don't actually see the respect and responsibility that men can have. And so it's just saying here, it's really important to have men in the classroom. I'm very fortunate. I pay for my private school for my lad, and he's got some very strong male role models. And just the way that they interact with him gives him a respect as to who he can be as he grows through. I mean, his life.
Well, he had you, the most amazing male people, so he'd be fine anywhere.
I'm really, really passionate about this. I'm ambassador for International Men's Day. That was on Saturday.
Yes.
And there's so much conversation around toxic masculinity, but we must remember the positive male role models have a huge benefit, not only for the boys involved and the girls involved, but for all of society.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really great for the girls.
Absolutely.
My son's school,
Isabel and I are very lucky to be surrounded by such positive role models.
Absolutely.
OK, so let's bring you up to date with today's top stories now.
Shamima Begum, who left the UK at the age of 15 to join so-called Islamic State, is due to have her case heard in an appeal court today. It comes after the Supreme Court ruled she was not allowed to come to the UK to fight her citizenship, easy for you to say, case against the Home Office. She's denied, of course, any involvement in terror activities.
And the Prime Minister will address business leaders today as the country braces for £25 billion worth of tax rises and spending cuts. Rishi Sunak is expected to focus on innovation in his speech at the annual CBI conference, using Brexit freedoms to strengthen the UK economy.
Manchester United footballer Mason Greenwood is set to appear in court today, charged with attempted rape. 21-year-old's accused of assault, as well as controlling and coercive behaviour. All three charges relate to one woman.
Now, this is going to cheer you up, guaranteed. As England's campaign for World Cup glory kicks off, estate agent and father of one, Marco Halliwell, has created a rousing football anthem while singing his newborn daughter to sleep.
Isn't that an oxymoron, to having a rousing song when you're trying to get your child to sleep? And Marco is hoping that his song, Coming Home for Christmas, will be a success, and plans to give all profits to FareShare, which is a charity set up to fight hunger and food waste across the UK. Let's take a listen to that rousing lullaby.
World Cup's coming home. waiting for the trophy.
It's got everything. It's
You
got
love that. You're clapping and
It's got
cheering
football,
along.
it's got Christmas, it's got humour.
And
Hello, mate.
kids.
Hi.
Cute little
Thanks for
kids.
having me on,
Hello.
guys. Hi.
So, did this work in getting your little one to sleep?
I mean, it was a bit more tame when I sort of first started
right,
working
okay.
on it, and I was sort of working on the hook, and gradually over time, it's got a bit more serious and a bit more sort of anthem-like. But initially, yes, in the beta stages.
Okay, fair enough. And so, listen, this is a departure from your normal life.
Yeah.
Talk us through how this has all happened.
Yeah, so I'm a man of many talents, but an estate agent at this moment in time. Have been for quite a few years, but I've always wanted to be a pop star. I mean, who doesn't? That or a footballer, and I'm not very good at football, unfortunately. Yeah, I had my daughter last year, and obviously had a nice bit of time off, and I was just singing to her, and I've got quite a good voice. And, you know, Anna, my fiancée, could hear sort of, you know, a couple of the hooks I was coming up with through the baby monitor. And she said, you're onto something here. And then I took it to some guys that are very musically talented, and they helped me piece it together in what is going to be Christmas #1.
Beautiful, beautiful. I admire. Can I please have a...
Please, yeah, this is the actual one.
This might be as close as we get to this.
Wow.
Shall we give it a lucky stroke?
Yeah, fantastic.
Beautiful. So one of the things I thought was really funny that I saw in there is that you say that Santa Claus might be English.
Santa Claus is English. Rudolph has called me to tell me that. I've had a direct line to Rudolph, and he told me Santa's English, and I have every reason to believe him.
That might get you in hot water with some of the sort of cultural appropriation people. I mean, you know, I thought it was Germanic in origin. I mean, it's a battle between Germany and England.
Do you know what? It's really interesting that you say that, because I've actually heard so many different countries. People will be like, well, I thought he was Dutch. I thought he was this. I thought he was that. So I don't think anyone knows. So, and I just think it's, you know, quite a funny thing to do to, you know, to...
Claim him.
Just claim him. Just claim him. Yeah.
This fictional character belongs to us.
That's the magic of Christmas,
I
isn't
just
it?
like to call him Father Christmas, and then you don't have to worry about where he's come from. Listen, tell us about Fair Share, because you've decided that once you hit #1, all of the profits are going to go to Fair Share, which is, you know, a big deal.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for asking about that. Fair Share, it's not that well-known charity, so I wanted to bring it to the limelight. It's a fantastic charity. Obviously, it's going to be a tough winter, you know, for a lot of families, off the back of the pandemic as well, and the cost of living crisis. Fantastic charity. Every pound that I raise is 4 meals. So, you know, if you buy the song on iTunes, that's 3 meals. Yeah, you know, their motto is they're tackling, you know, food poverty and fighting food waste. So, you know, they go to a big supermarket like Tesco's, and food that would, you know, find itself in the landfill, they're repurposing it and making fantastic meals.
Fantastic.
A rousing anthem with a social cause. Now then, you think you can go all the way to #1? Can England go all the way?
Of course England can go all the way. They've got everything that it takes, and it's about believing. And listen, you know, whether the World Cup physically comes to England or not, football comes exactly, but you know, it comes home every time. It's about what it does for the nation. It brings everyone together. You know, we're usually quite tribal. It brings everyone together, and you put that with Christmas as well. Christmas and the World Cup, it's very magical.
You've got a social conscience. What do you think about Harry Kane wearing the One Love armband today? Are you worried it might jeopardise chances if he gets excluded from a future match?
I'd like to think he wouldn't get excluded. I think it's really brave, and I'm really supportive of him wearing that armband. I think, you know, it is the responsibility of these superstars on the stage to express what they feel and what I feel's right. And yeah, good luck to him. But yeah, I mean, a yellow card, you know, just for the first match, and then maybe not wear it again just so he doesn't get suspended. I don't, you know, there's a way around it, isn't there?
Well, we wish you all the very best of British. We hope you get to #1, and thanks for coming, Mogga.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Maybe we can play that out one more time, and that can take us to the break. Have another listen to that anthem, because we're all World Cup mad.
Yeah, World Cup's coming home. The World Cup's coming home for Christmas. Rudolph's on the phone. He said, don't you know that Santa's English? Underneath the Christmas tree, I'll be waiting for...
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet and windy in the southwest, cold with patchy fog in the northeast. Let's take a look at the details. So a wet and gloomy start to the week across southwest England as a band of heavy rain makes its way northeastwards this morning. Windy there with a risk of gales for coastal areas. It's initially going to be dry for southeast England and London, though rain will move in from the southwest through this morning with some heavy bursts at times. Wet and windy for South Wales as heavy rain pushes across the country, drier for longer in the north and east. After a chilly start to the new week, with some clear spells across the Midlands, rain will quickly spread in from the southwest with some heavy bursts at times, becoming increasingly breezy. A frosty start to Monday across northeast England with patches of fog or freezing fog in places. This may take some time to clear this morning, dry but cloudy as the fog lifts. It'll be a cold start, especially in eastern parts of Scotland, with a frost and fog patches. That fog slowly lifting this morning with a band of cloud and showers affecting eastern coasts. A wet morning across Northern Ireland with bursts of heavy rain that could cause travel disruption in some places, and a windy morning too, with a risk of gales for coastal areas. So rain will continue across southern and central England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and it will be drier further north with showers for eastern areas. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
And the Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign now in a matter of 4 hours' time against Iran today.
A very good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock. It's Monday, the 21st of November. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Martin. Here's what's leading our news this morning.
England and Wales launched their World Cup campaigns today, with the Three Lions facing off against Iran in 4 hours' time at 1 p.m. It comes amid continued controversy with England captain Harry Kane potentially facing an instant yellow card if he wears his rainbow armband during today's match.
Tory MPs have reacted with anger to claims Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are considering a Swiss-style arrangement with the European Union. In an attempt to quell the rebels, Number 10 and the Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick have both insisted the option is off the table.
Where that story came from, but it's completely untrue. We have no intention of pursuing that kind of arrangement.
And migrant workers should be used to fix the UK's labour shortages. The CBI will warn the government today. Rishi Sunak will also give a speech to business leaders as the country prepares for tougher taxes and spending cuts.
And as always, we love to hear from you throughout the programme. Get in touch on Twitter or on email. Lots of your views have been coming through. We're talking about water consumption.
Yeah.
Should we be drinking, as Adrian Charles was trying to tell us, 4 litres of water a day? Kevin says, I always drink 2 to 5 litres of wine, beer and tea, which made me laugh.
And there's a serious point here about the Shamima Begum appeal. Jane says it makes no difference to people who helped her. Begum knew what she was doing. As such, she should never, ever be allowed back into the country.
I was just going to do one more, on World Cup, because that is our top story today. Penny saying, my husband and I have a pact. We'll avoid anything to do with it. We live in a rugby and cricket household. So, well, we're focusing on the World Cup today.
Well, as we just said, the Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign today in 4 hours at 1 o'clock. Our opening match against Iran. Can't wait.
Yeah, it comes amid controversy, though, around England captain Harry Kane. He could face, it's thought, an instant yellow card for wearing the One Love armband in support of LGBTQ+ rights, because it breaks FIFA rules, doesn't it?
It does.
On what the uniform is.
He might get a yellow card and then he might be off in the next match.
Yeah.
Let's not forget also Wales play their first game this evening, facing off against the USA at 7 p.m.
Yeah, and Gareth Bale also making those similar commitments in terms of armbands as well. Look, yesterday the big opener began and it was a bit of a disaster for the host nation, Qatar. They lost 2-0 to Ecuador, which gave them the unfortunate title of being the first World Cup hosts to lose their opening match. That's the first time in 92 years.
Yeah, and it was a really boring spectacle, I must confess.
Yeah, well, a lot of people got up and left, didn't they?
They did, yeah, including half the crowd sort of left. Anyway, let's go to Qatar now, where our reporter Paul Hawkins is waiting for us. How are things shaping up, Paul?
The atmosphere's building. The numbers of people here in the Souk Waqif, the market in Doha, the big market in Doha, is building. You can see some Argentina fans there in the background, some Brazil fans, frankly, fans from all across the world mixing and mingling. It's a fantastic atmosphere. The Senegalese fans, Senegal playing the Netherlands in between the England and Wales games. So lots of Senegal fans here earlier, and they had their drums out, and they were making a lot of noise and people were gathering around them with their phones. So it's getting hot here. It's getting noisy, but the atmosphere is fantastic. In terms of England and Wales, well, England fans, of course, and Wales fans, to be honest, wondering whether Gareth Bale and Harry Kane will wear that One Love armband. Will they incur that yellow card from FIFA? It's almost like a bit of brinkmanship with FIFA. We'll wear the armband, but are you really going to give us a yellow card? And are you going to continue with that policy throughout the tournament when you speak about inclusiveness? So a really interesting subplot. We spoke to some England fans earlier, and this is what they had to say about whether Harry Kane should wear that armband.
FIFA need to decide where they stand on football versus politics, really, because the line coming out of them the last week or 2 weeks has been to focus on the football. And obviously Kane wouldn't be doing that by wearing the armband, but how you can let the political stuff spill into the actual game itself is beyond me. I've never seen anything or heard anything like that. That a player can be booked inside a game for a political view. Harry Kane's a very difficult situation, because to not wear it now looks as though like he doesn't support it as much as he said he did.
So, yeah, whether Harry Kane wears that armband or not will be fascinating. Will they give him a yellow card straight away? And also, how will the Iran fans behave, given what is happening in their country? Will they celebrate the goals? Will they sing the national anthem? So, women's rights, a big thing in Iran at the moment. LGBTQ plus rights, a big thing from England's perspective. There's this undercurrent of politics and social issues to the match. The Wales game, when it comes to the One Love, wearing the One Love armband, there'll be a question mark there over whether Gareth Bale wears that as well for their game against the USA. This is what one Welsh family who live here in Doha, told us about how they're feeling about the game last night when we were on the Corniche, that's like the waterfront in Doha. This is what they had to tell us.
So excited, and I can't believe it, because Leo was actually born here and he's actually going to be here for the World Cup with Wales playing, so we're all so excited.
Yeah, Leo, he's just examining the Welsh dragon.
The dragon.
You like the dragon?
Dragon.
We mentioned that you live in Doha as well, in Qatar. A lot's been written about Qatar in the press. Has that been fair?
I don't think so. I think really, like, it's got a lot of bad press, but really it's a very relaxed place. There's a lot going on. In terms of what we see here, I think it's overblown. I think, say for example, the World Cup was in Russia. We didn't seem to bring up so many of the issues there, but as it's come here, it's the Middle East, I think it's a little bit overblown.
Yeah, and there has been some criticism of whether the reporting in the media, certainly the British media, has been balanced or not. No one's saying there aren't issues and that they need to be addressed, but equally a lot of people here, expats and Qataris, complaining that you're not talking about the positive side of Qatar as well. So that's another interesting aspect to the media coverage of this tournament. Look, we're, a few hours away now, less than 4 hours away from England kicking off. It's going to be really hot when they play Iran, about 30 degrees, and then Wales when they take on the USA later, about 10 o'clock this evening. It'll be sort of in the low 20s, mid-20s, so a little bit more bearable. But it's going to be fascinating to see how the climate, the social issues and the politics influences today's games. There's going to be a lot to look out for, even if you're not a football fan.
Thank you very much indeed for that analysis. We'll be back with you throughout the course of the day here on GB News. Now, we're going to be talking about Brexit. Remember that Eurosceptic Tory MPs have reacted just a little bit angrily to claims the government could pursue a Swiss-style deal with the European Union.
Well, Number 10 has categorically denied that the idea is on the table, but last night Nadine Dorries warned Rishi Sunak not to pursue anything that could jeopardise the UK's sovereignty.
Well, earlier on this morning, we spoke to Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, who said there was no truth to this story. Here's a reminder of what he told us.
I don't know where that story came from, but it's completely untrue. We have no intention of pursuing that kind of arrangement. There are respectable arguments either way, but we have a settled position now as a country, and we reached an agreement with the European Union in 2019 and 2020, and we're moving forward on that basis. Of course, there are opportunities now to improve our trading relationship, as there are to improve our security and our immigration relationship with the European Union. But we're not interested in reopening the fundamental position that we reached with the EU a few years ago.
OK, well, let's get the thoughts from the opposition with the Shadow Economic Secretary to the Treasury, Tulip Siddiq, who joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
OK, so first let's start off. There's the Tory party at civil war, the press is telling us, over their position on a Swiss-style arrangement with the European Union. Is that the kind of thing the Labour Party would like?
Well, the Conservatives have made a complete hash of this Brexit deal after telling the country that they were going to get Brexit done. It doesn't really feel like they have got the deal done. For a start, they made a huge mess over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Then they decided to ramp up the divisive rhetoric with our EU partners. And then they signed a deal with Australia that their own ministers seem to be running away from. And then on top of all of that, they don't seem to be exploring any trading opportunities with partners outside the EU. So after the G20, the Prime Minister in his statement talked about how there was no actual trade deal forthcoming with the USA and couldn't give us a time on the trade deal with India. So we're very worried about what they're actually doing with this Brexit deal. And we're not sure where these rumours are coming from in terms of a Swiss-style deal.
Running us through the history of the Conservative Party in the last little while, but what's Labour's position? Would you categorically not be in favour of a Swiss-style relationship with the European Union?
We in July, Keir Starmer set out very clearly what we would want as terms of a Brexit deal. He set out 5 points that he talked about. The first one was mutual recognition of qualifications of services, so whether it's our scientists or services. Another one was about our security pact with the EU, about data sharing and making sure that we could keep our borders safe. We talked about trading opportunities. We talked about investment in Britain. But what we really want to do is sort out the Northern Ireland Protocol and get a Brexit that really works for our country. Of course, we need some flexibility from the EU as well. Those were the 5 points that Keir Starmer set out for our Brexit deal, and it is not in accordance with what the Tories are doing.
OK, so today you're criticising the Tories on their fiscal responsibility, but let's not forget the Labour Party wanted sooner, longer and harder lockdowns that have put us $500 billion in debt. Surely things would be just as bad, if not worse, under a Labour government.
That's absolutely not true. I think what I should say to you clearly is that if you look at the economic record of the Conservative Party at a situation where household disposable income is falling by 7% in the next 2 years, the worst record ever. That's not just a figure. 7% is people's lives, their ability to buy food, their ability to pay their energy bills, their ability to feed their children. These are really bad economic times. It's the highest tax burden ever on record. We're in a situation where we're meant to be the lowest growth country in the OECD in the next 2 years as well. We're the only country in the G7 that hasn't gone back to its pre-COVID levels of growth. So I won't be taking any lessons from the Conservative government about economic responsibility. What I want to see is a proper plan for growth, which I still haven't seen.
With respect, I don't think the Conservative Party would necessarily disagree with the OBR with their assessment of how the cost of living is being impacted, but they would say this is attributable directly to the fact that we have just been through a pandemic. We're also facing a war in Ukraine. But the question remains, would it not be worse if Labour had been in government throughout all of this?
No, absolutely not. When we were in government, the economy grew, so that's absolutely not true. The other thing I would say is that, yes, of course, there are global factors. So global factors in terms of Ukraine, as you talk about, there are global factors in terms of the pandemic. Why is it that all the other countries in the OECD have a higher rate of growth than us? Why is it that our growth is 1.4% and the OECD average is 2.1%? What's the reason for that? Why is it the reason that no other country that we can be compared to is having an emergency budget, but we are? So it's absolutely not right to say that it's only because of global factors. Whereas the global factors may have played a role, we were exposed because we didn't have a plan for growth and we hadn't insulated our constituents from the shock of global factors. And that's what government should be doing. They should have a long-term growth plan. I don't know if you saw over the weekends, the head of the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, said Jeremy Hunt's autumn statement had no plan for growth at all.
Well, yes, but they also pointed out...
The chairman of Tesco's...
Go on, I was just going to say, the OBR, since you mentioned them, they also talked about the cost of Brexit. Now, that's not to say you should be in favour of it or against it. There is a cost to leaving the European Union. That was a democratic decision. The British government had a mandate to do that. And presumably, Labour would have had to have carried out Brexit as well had they been in power at the time of the referendum. So you talk about this being a uniquely British problem. Well, it is, frankly, isn't it?
I mean, of course, there was a decision made, as we know, in the country to leave Brexit. But what happens afterwards is what we should be looking at. And the Brexit deal that they've secured is completely wrong for our country. So, of course, any government would have had to leave the European Union. But how you negotiated that without ramping up divisive rhetoric with your trading partners and making a hash of the Northern Ireland Protocol is what we would have looked at. The chairman of Tesco's has said the Labour Party is the only party that has a credible plan for growth. So, you know, when the chairman of Tesco's comes out for us, I think you probably know which way the country is heading. But you can't ignore the facts in terms of the drop in the standard of living for people and the fact that the government still won't follow some of the policies that we're talking about in order to generate more revenue for people in the country.
I just want to finish with a question about the World Cup, Tulip Siddiq, because of course lots of people will know you having represented and looked out for Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe for many years, who was in your, or is indeed in your constituency. Being Iranian, how important and symbolic will this match be tonight in an already controversial World Cup, to be playing a country with such a controversial reputation itself?
And I think with Nazanin, she's always made it clear that it wasn't the people of Iran who imprisoned her, it was the authorities. So I think that's one thing to say. She is very proud of being Iranian and talks about how she wants her daughter to know about her Iranian heritage. But you are right in that in terms of the country and the government, not so much the people, there's a lot of controversy about what's going on right now, especially with the rights of women, and Nazanin has spoken out about it. I think I can't speak for Nazanin, but what I would like is that if we're going to play a country like Iran, we probably should use the opportunity to highlight what's happening in the country in terms of the brave women who are going out onto the streets, ripping off their hijabs and saying, we want to reclaim the right to do what we want over our own bodies. So if we can use that platform to highlight some of what's going on, for me, that's what I would be doing.
OK, Tulip Siddiq, really good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed for your time.
OK, let's speak now to our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan, as he's always on the money. Now, what do you make of what Tulip just said there?
Well, Labour are trying to make hay, aren't they? And as any opposition party would, it is a pretty incredible fall in living standards that we're facing. That's not a contentious thing to say. It's just a fact. This is what inflation does. When you've got inflation in double digits, living standards get absolutely hammered. What we don't talk about as much is the impact of inflation on business. You know, last week, before that autumn statement, we learnt that consumer inflation is 11.1%, Martin, which is obviously a 41-year high. Very few people mentioned, except here on GB News, that producer price inflation is 19.2%. So that's the cost of the inputs that firms need for the goods and services that they then sell us. When producer price inflation is so far ahead of consumer inflation, 19.2 compared to 11.1, you know there's more inflation in the pipeline. And that's why living standards will continue to deteriorate. And of course, Manchester City's opposition, they just got to sit there and say, well, look at the Tories.
Yeah. We have to leave it there, Liam. I know that you'll have lots more on the money for us throughout the course of the day. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. After that, Andrew Pearce will be here with his take on all the big stories of the day. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 9:21. Time to go through all of today's top stories with consultant editor of the Daily Mail and, of course, my co-presenter on a Thursday, the lovely Andrew Pearce.
Hello.
Good morning to you. You want to talk about, of course, this big story, this big upset that's been, well, arguably sort of the flames have been fanned by the Sunday Times. But tell us your thoughts on this Brexit story.
We do not want a Swiss-style Brexit because it isn't Brexit. It's as simple as that. It would never get through the parliamentary party of the Tory party. Even Labour poo-pooing it, because essentially it means we'll have to pay billions back into the EU. The EU will then start laying down laws. The whole point about Brexit is that we stand on our own 2 feet. This is now Rishi Sunak. I'm suspicious of Rishi Sunak. He was a Brexiteer, but he was a new MP when the referendum came, and nobody can really find much evidence of what he said or did to support Brexit back then. And Jeremy Hunt, we know, is an wettest of wet Remainers, and he is the Chancellor of the Exchequer. So I suspect the Swiss option would be brilliant for Jeremy Hunt.
I agree, and quite a few Brexiteers were saying before this announcement they were suspicious about Rishi, and especially Jeremy Hunt, as you are correct in saying, the arch rejoiner is seen as a globalist, Goldman Sachs, not really sort of, PLC UK. So actually, even though this story might be smoke and mirrors, I think there's a kernel of truth in it.
Yeah, it could be a bit of kite flying by Number 10 in the Treasury. They might have wanted it out there, see what the reaction is, and see if it's just the usual suspects like me to complain and protest. But it isn't just the usual suspects. A lot of Tory... I haven't spoken to a single Tory who thinks this is a starter. It would be betrayal.
Yeah, well,
There's no doubt about
to be fair
it.
to Rishi Sunak, there is no evidence that he isn't a Brexiteer.
Yeah.
He has voted in favour of Brexit, and they have come out robustly in Number 10 saying there is no chance of a Swiss-style deal. And I have to say, I think they're right. There is absolutely no chance, even from Labour, of bringing this in, because it is just a politically toxic topic.
I can just imagine what our fellow GB News presenter Nigel Farage would have said when he read that Sunday Times story yesterday, which indeed he would have, because I think that would be... If they were mad enough to go down that route, I think it would persuade Nigel Farage to come out of semi-retirement
But he said,
and fight the political cause.
He said, if it's true, the Tories deserve to be crushed.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I think he's got a good point.
Yeah, but then, as we were saying, Jeremy Hunt has publicly said he wants to remove the barriers to trade.
Yeah.
And look, we can all understand why he wants to do that, because it will make us better off economically. The question is, how does he foresee that in the future? And I suppose that's where all of the alarm bells...
Exactly. What they've got to do is get Brexit fixed, and they've got to fix it in Northern Ireland, and quick, because Northern Ireland is effectively still in the European Union, still in the single market. It's an outrage. And people worry about the Union. I worry about the Union. People look at Scotland. But actually, if they don't fix this Northern Ireland issue, it'll be a united Ireland that ends the Union rather than Scotland. So they know it's a priority and they've got to get on with it.
OK.
OK, let's move on to another story that's been lighting up the airwaves with GB News viewers this morning. That's this business of Harry Kane wearing the One Love rainbow-coloured armband in the opening match today against Iran. What do you make of that, Andrew?
Look, I wouldn't set foot in a country like Qatar or Iran. In Qatar, you can be arrested if you're same-sex couple for holding hands or kissing. I'm a gay guy, and so I wouldn't want to go near the place. But it's like taking the knee. What does it achieve?
They're doing that again today.
Yeah, I gather that. I've had this conversation with black footballers before. What does it achieve? Because the Football Association management is dominated by all white people. There's, I think, one black manager in the Premier League. Taking the knee just makes very well-paid footballers feel better about themselves.
Well,
and likewise, wearing the wristband will make them feel better about playing in a country where they'd rather gays weren't invented, and against a country, Iran, where people are put to death for being gay.
Well, what it could achieve is Harry Kane getting a yellow card, and if he does it twice, being excluded
Then he's out.
from a game.
That's the England captain finished.
That's a tangible
And
isn't
he our great match winner? Didn't he score most goals in the last World Cup?
Yeah, he's
So
our
somebody
golden
knows
player.
nothing about football.
That golden player is sacrificed to virtue signalling. I think that'd be a huge, huge own goal.
Yeah, and it is virtue signalling. I gather the Welsh captain,
Gareth Bale,
Right.
your friend from the lift.
the one from the left, yeah. I think he's talking about doing it
Yes.
as well. So, but I've just that football. The FA bloke, the mate who had the rant at the weekend, what's his
FIFA
name?
chap. Yes.
Entirely.
I am gay.
I am gay and I'm disabled and I'm African.
I don't think you are,
No,
mate.
what you are is mad.
But we have to leave it there.
Yeah.
Andrew Pearce, always fascinating to get your take on the top stories. We'll all be tuned, won't we, to that England game kicking off, as you say, 3.5 hours now, and Wales playing this evening around 7 o'clock. But for us, for now, that's it. We're back tomorrow, aren't we? 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And up next, Tom Harwood with the briefing.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I